Buckle up, kids. This is going to be a long one. Originally, I wasn't planning on sitting here holding the microphone physically, but it was actually kind of difficult to set up my microphone stand in my living room because I decided to record this video in kind of a different setting because of the different vibe. I've done videos like this in the past where I've read stories from Dwarf Fortress's history, but those always ended up just being text on the screen and my voice in the background. I wanted to do something a little bit more than just an audiobook, so this is what I've come up with. I hope you like the vibe. Welcome to my living room. It's mid-November, 2006. And Tourette Dog logs in to the Something Awful forums to write the prologue for their Let's Play. And while the age of the internet rots away the original posts, it remains archived on the LP archive. Of course, all of the links to this story are going to be findable in the description in places, but I hope that you sit tight, buckle up, and have a good listen. First of 14 participants of the Fortress of Boatmurdered begins here. In the year 1050, the dwarven civilization of Kimil exhausted the last of its mines, driven by lust for gold and rumors of the priceless and all but mythical metal, adamantine. A team of 7 colonists was dispatched to build a new home for the dwarves in the smooth points of pride. The first year of diaries from the ill-fated foreman of the mine were recovered, giving some hint as to the beginnings of the fortress that once stood there, if not mysterious and presumably gruesome fate. I love that they're writing this as though it's presumed everything's going to fall. I mean, after all, it's a Let's Play, and they're not worried about how much experience any of the players have. It is the month of granite in the year 1050. We've set out for the mine, led by the Miners' Guild representative. The man claims to have led several successful expeditions. So taking his advice, we've set out with a skeleton crew. Just 1 miner, 1 lumberjack, a pair of farmers, and some craftsmen. He suggested plenty of meat, my favorite, booze as well as some seeds, and a few dogs and cats. He swears the dogs will pay for themselves a dozen times over in warding off the larger wildlife, while the cats will make indoor life more comfortable and pest-free. I thought he muttered something about their taste as well, but I must have misheard. The new fortress site is truly in the puckered sphincter of nowhere. The nearest civilization, if you could call it that, is a goblin citadel to the northeast. But the guildsman swears they've surveyed for precious metals, and this is the best spot. There is also a river nearby, which means one underground. This will allow us to start a farm without much trouble, once we dig into it. Of course, he waits till he's leaving to tell us the name of the site, because a new chapter of dwarven history begins here at this place, Kogansan. Boatmurdered. After that, the site inspector took off at a flat run, promising to be back real soon. Bloody nobles. But still, nothing to do but to start. Stockpiles and send someone to chop a few trees, and set someone else to dig for the river. Later, in the same month, the dwarves soon noticed that they were surrounded by elephants. In the month of Fellsight, some time had passed, and their miner hit the river. They were lucky. They didn't get flooded. Sometimes, when you collide with the rivers underground, the pressure can cause immense flooding. This can cause drowning and other injuries, but they were fortunate and got it at a low point. They were glad that they didn't have to deal with such flooding, and this means that they can now begin to farm, due to having access to water deep underground. They can also begin to carve out some rooms and set up a place to live. A few months on, and it looks like we might actually survive. Tourette Dog writes, "We've got a farm up, and got some bedrooms, which ain't much to look at, but at least we've got beds. We've got a dining room and some decent thrones, and got a bunch of traps. God knows why, but the lads love them. They stand around staring at them for hours, nothing out of the river yet, and the elephants have been pretty quiet. Too quiet. I can see them out there, staring at me, with those beady eyes, those gleaming tusks. Looking over the river, elephants can't swim. Can they? Threat Dog claims that several pages of the journal are torn out, and the entries seem to resume sometime in the fall. Merchants trying to dodge the elephants. The betting pools up to 10 stone blocks and a rat's skull. We really need to make some coins. I guess the trade depot was a good idea, but we'll see if we can finish it before they get here, or get eaten by those bloody pachyderms. Threat Dog's writing is fun. I quite enjoy the embellishment, but also the kind of direct nihilism he writes with. It's fun to read. And it's especially fun when he's confused or like annoyed because he really writes it in, like this next entry right here. Now, riddle me this. What sort of soft-headed, beard-gnawing merchants braves goblins, mountains, more goblins, and then those damn elephants to show up with nothing but one piece of cheese and 2 rolls of cloth? These merchants, that's who. I noticed one of them try to eat his own ear coming in. God knows how they're going to get out. Fortunately, they're dumb enough to take some of these useless trinkets in trade, and hopefully not starve to death. That was my addition. Fall is setting in, and it seems like a good time to take stock of where we are before the winter gets around to killing us. Our bedrooms and dining rooms are finished, and we're running low on booze. So we put together a still. I've never seen the lads put any building up so fast. And we've got a butcher shop behind the closed doors, so the squeamish don't get put off their meat from seeing where it comes from. There's also a statue garden to get away from throwing rocks across the river at the elephants, and the kennels so that we can start training the dogs. One of the peasants has been working on smoothing the floors in the dining room, and it looks like she's actually picked up a bit of a knack for it. The farm is undertended, but we've got plenty of food, so I'm not too worried. What does worry me, however, writes Tourette Dog, is the wildlife. They're too quiet. I know they're planning something. And they will have to continue planning because it is beginning to set into winter. Moonstone, the year 1050. Tourette Dog writes, growing season's over, so I've got a new project for the lads. With a little bit of digging and creative channel building, we can get a nice moat set up and hopefully keep away most of the wildlife, at least from the north. We'll put a drawbridge over the top of it, and we can seal off that side if the elephants get too close for comfort. One of the lads thinks we might even be able to set up some traps in there for some critters, if we work at it a bit. It might kick up our breeding stocks for food a tad. As winter continues, they've moved into Opal. Tourette Dog is very frustrated. Those fucking monkeys. I didn't even see them come in. But one of them ran off with something. Thieves. And oh shit, those are not cute chimpanzees. Oh no, those are big mandrills, pissed off and greedy, and they feel justified in stealing anything not nailed down. I would argue that chimpanzees are also pretty big and scary, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. Where was I? Stealing anything not nailed down. And if they can pry something, for instance, a dwarf's arm, loose, it ain't nailed down in their book. A whole horde of them busted in looking for gods know what. One of our war dogs went out to fight them off, which didn't end so well for the poor dog. A few more war dogs ran out and attacked, and I have to say that I'm actually slightly terrified of them because one of the bitches actually gave birth while she was attacking, and her puppies joined in the carnage. At the end of the day, 3 mandrills were dead, and they took 1 war dog with them and injured another one and a puppy. The poor dog is in sad shape. He keeps trying to find the dwarf who trained him and then passing out. A few minutes later, he'll wake up and take a few more steps and then pass out again. I'm tempted to have him put out of his misery by the butcher, but nobody will touch him. It seems a sad way to treat someone who fought off the mandrills. The puppy is still running around with half of its chest missing. Makes it damn disturbing when he humps your leg, I'll tell you that. The month of Obsidian has rolled around, and with that, I'm off, Tourette Dog writes. The fort's in passable shape. And for the next overseer, got a drawbridge hooked up with a lever in the statue garden. There's some traps at the river entrance as well. and got most of the livestock crammed into a cage near the butcher. And everything looks fit to start next spring. I'm leaving. If I can dodge the elephants one last time, and if the mandrills don't get me first. Here's our fort as I left it, and we'll see what the future has for it. It's time for the save file to be passed on to our next goon from the Something Awful forums. Testing. Check 1, 2. And that gives us only one logical place to continue from, and that is the First of Granite in the year 1052. And Mariguana has just taken the save file of Boatmurdered. I came to this dump looking for a royal fortress, but instead I found this hole in the dirt, complete with useless hillbillies. There's not one good crafter amongst this whole lot. And I hear that there will be a whole troop of unskilled immigrants coming in from the homelands any time now. Better stick to the basics and gather some food, so we won't all die. And much to Mariguana's dismay, the migrants appear to have come earlier than expected, and added, "Oh no, I didn't think they'd be coming this early." And with that, a whole slew of new migrants have joined the fortress of Boatmurdered. It is the 3rd of Fellsight, 1052. And Mariguana complains, "Some blockhead is holding my carpenter shop hostage and demanding shells and wood. I've ordered the worthless immigrants to go fishing. Who knows? Maybe one of them will find a dead turtle on the riverbank." 7th of Fellsight, 1052. And Mariguana seems to have had a change of their initial impression, complimenting the food. Nothing gets you going in the morning quite like a delicious syrup roast. It sticks right to the bones. In a glorious display, showing off the dwarven syrup roast with ingredients that are minced long grass seeds, minced longland grass seeds, minced horse meat, and of course, minced dwarven syrup. Sounds like a reduction thing. Frankly, I think that could actually be quite scrumptious in the right setting. I'm thinking kind of like a sweet and sour pork, maybe, with like some sesame seeds on it, except with these longland grass seeds. Maybe edible, who knows? 6th of Hematite, 1052. Remember that nutty dwarf who took over my shop? Well, he finally found what he's looking for, and he's made a legendary table. And he calls it Sound Syrup. He drew some scary werewolves on the thing, but it's pretty nice, assuming we can ever get him to drop it. This would be great in our dining room. I would just like to throw in a commentator's note here and mention that more recently, when a dwarf makes an artifact, they leave it where it was created, and then it's usually put into a stockpile. However, back in 2006, Dwarf Fortress artifacts were a little bit more coveted by the dwarves. When they made their artifacts, they usually just equipped them, regardless of what the item was, and then would walk around with it until they were physically incapable of holding it anymore, usually when it was pried from their dead arms. Mariguana has reached the 12th of Hematite in the year 1052. Today, one of our apprentice carpenters fell asleep on the bridge, and was swept away by a flood, never to be seen again. On the same day, the metalsmith gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Doran Clearingsilvers. Also, mandrills stole several objects that we had lying around, but thankfully, nothing important. Just a few bits of clothing and an iron helmet. And it seems that Mariguana here has become a bit of a victim of their own successes, because they write, "We have so much food, it's becoming a bother to store it all. I have reassigned most of my dwarves to work on the secret project. And a farmer tried to organize a party in the statue garden when everyone needed to be working, so I locked the bastard in there, and I hope he enjoys partying alone. And damn the snake men," Mariguana continues. "They came out of nowhere and mauled one of my masons. Why did it have to be one of the useful dwarves? Now he'll never work again. Of course, as you can see here, he has some pretty grievous wounds, including one of his hands being completely gone, and his lower body and upper body sustaining some mild injuries. It seems like his right and left upper arms are fine, and so is his leg and foot on the left and right side, but his right lower leg is pretty much mangled beyond recognition, and everything else has major bruising. Poor guy. It is the 24th of Galena in the year 1052. We finally have enough housing for all of these freeloader immigrants," Mariguana writes. "And it's a good thing, too. They were getting restless. And restless dwarves soon become angry dwarves. On the 12th of limestone, Mariguana writes, "One of my jewelers was possessed during the early summer. It is now autumn, and only now did I figure out that he was asking for raw crystal glass. I got it made for him with a bit of effort, and he took that and several rough gems, and made an amulet called Necro Clearings. It sure has a lot of spikes. Clearly, as this red spinel amulet was made with all craftsmanship of the highest quality, of course, menaced with spikes of red spinel, aquamarine crystal glass, and green glass. A glorious amulet, very spiky." On the 24th of limestone, Mariguana is elated. Very excited, after all. They had just completed their secret project. "When enemies try to siege our beloved Boatmurdered, we can retract the main bridge by pulling the lever in the southwest corner of the statue garden. This will force them to walk through the southern gallery, where we will fire upon them mercilessly with the 2 ballista in the east. If, for some reason, we need to drain the water, pulling the northwest lever in the statue garden will accomplish this." And the dwarves are nearing the 26th of limestone in the year 1052, and the dwarven traders are back. Mariguana says that I gave them some of the junk that the previous overseer left here in exchange for quite a bit of meat. And by the 4th of Timber, late autumn had rolled around, and another damn immigration wave arrived. Why didn't anyone tell me about this? I had everything nice, and... oh, forget it. I always knew I was destined for misery. The lengths my brewers and threshers were traveling to get barrels was really starting to annoy me. So I've made all of the immigrants move all furniture indoors. By the end of the month, it seems that Mariguana has calmed down with the situation ever so slightly. We have tunneled new rooms for the fall immigrants. It's taking quite a long time to get the place furnished, though. And now winter has come. Thankfully, we have more than enough beer and food to last. And they share a large screenshot of the fortress as it currently sits. And for the less ASCII-minded of you here, in the middle here is the main entrance, and there's some masonry shops outside, surrounded by boulders. Over on the left, there are crates or bins filled with items. Up in the north is the project that Tourette Dog was championing. Here in the middle is the bridge that they used to get into the fortress itself. Down in the south is where the enemies would attack, full of some shallow water and ballista on the right side with extra ammunition. We have tons of bedrooms. We have a dining hall, a dormitory from the looks of things, the so-called statue garden with all of the levers, with some dwarves hanging out in it, various storage up in the northeast, the river on the far right, the previously mentioned butcher shops, various other crafts shops and workshops surrounded by walls, all engraved, of course, where they were farming, but it seems to have all dried up thanks to the season. And down south, additional bedrooms. And time continues to pass. On the 4th of Moonstone, we are getting overrun with animals, Mariguana writes. I think I need a butcher or two to sort this problem out. And by gods, another jeweler is possessed. I hope this asshole doesn't want crystal glass too. But by the end of the month, the jeweler has finished the artifact. Behold! The bronze mist, a green glass portal. This is a green glass portal. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. This object is adorned with hanging rings of pigtail and menaces with spikes of green glass and rose quartz and limestone. On the item are images of flies in limestone. And I'll also add, a portal is a word for a glass door. It's just a door, but made of glass. This is a particularly cool one, though, even by modern Dwarf Fortress standards, because no creatures can destroy an artifact door. It is midwinter, and I am pleased to note that the immigrant housing is completed. I have also constructed an armory for our future defense force here, near the barracks, with a stockpile in the south for weapons and a stockpile in the north for armor. Just under a month later, the poor mason, who was ambushed by the snakemen, died of thirst today. He had been refusing to eat or drink because he was so depressed. I guess he didn't have much of his body left, so that would make anybody depressed. Things got less depressing quickly and became rather interesting because the mandrills came back. But this time, we got them. Sure, they ripped the craftsmen to pieces, but we got every last one of them. Mandrill hats. Anyone? And spring has arrived, the 1st of Granite, 1053. And with that, the final map of the fortress. I bid farewell to the outpost of Boatmurdered and wish best of luck to the next goon in the forums. And with this glorious screenshot, we have the completion of Mariguana's session in Boatmurdered. and we can move on to our next contestant, or contender, whichever you prefer. Have a lot of houseplants and you get fruit flies. And our next character to take over the fortress of Boatmurdered is Keyboard Fox, and they have a request. I'm going to do my turn right now. Is it okay if I don't try to mess with screenshots very much and instead write a whole lot? And after a little bit of discussion, they've agreed to post some screenshots at the end. They also would like to add that they are writing in character and intend to feel stuck up and superior about how his designs are so much better than others. Spring has arrived. The month of granite begins. I have arrived, and it's an interesting fortress setup, quite unlike the ones I'm used to designing. My first reaction is to set up and produce as much food as I can, until I realize that there's plenty of prepared food, and the fortress should hold out there. Still, I shall be setting up the farms, and growing plenty of plump helmets. I know from experience that overconfidence equals starvation, as far as food is concerned. After a few minutes of studying the fortress layout, I decide that my talents would best be used in first making things more secure. The system my predecessor set up looks workable, but in my experience, everything can be improved via liberal application of traps. First, I cancel the craft dwarves' repetitive making of bone crafts, and set them to make dark stone short swords. These work just as well as steel swords, and will be perfect for military or trap usage. I also designate an obsidian stockpile nearby so that they have plenty of material to work with. At this point, I notice the complete mishmash of my predecessor's job settings. Obviously, the buffoon has never heard of specialization. I take some time to turn off fishing in every dwarf I can find. We have enough food in farming and cooking, and we do not need to waste time inefficiently wading about in the river. And I decide to start digging a tunnel deeper into the mountain, testing to see what there is to be found. And the idea of our dwarves carrying stones endlessly offends me. I remove the big stone stockpile, and the masons can carry their own damn boulders. Speaking of stockpiles, the furniture stockpile doesn't even seem to have everything allowed in it. What sort of imbecile was my predecessor anyway? And our miner has found a large chasm. Our metalsmith has been possessed, and he runs off to sulk in his bedroom, which leads me to notice that we do not have a forge set up. Yet. But we have struck iron ore. Finally, our non-possessed metalsmith has gotten to work on our metal forge. And why we have so many dwarves on detailing duty, I shall never know. And another thing that seems odd to me is that our loom is a distance away from the river, and the farmers' workshops, both of which would be logical places to put it. Again, I have to wonder what my predecessor was thinking. The possessed metalsmith claimed the newly built forge, and started demanding an ore that we do not have available. I set our miners to work immediately in hopes of finding it. I am also designating an elephant trap, which might also work against sieges. Just as I was typing that last entry, immigrants arrived, among them 3 nobles. The manager, the sheriff, and the House Barite representative. And damn, that's a lot of migrants. Our fortress is now up to 58 strong, and the possessed metalsmith has begun a construction using 2 iron ore. And I began designating the nobles' quarters, planning on using the same space for their dining and sleeping needs. The possessed metalsmith has created a Dicendimus Calficot, an iron toy warhammer. I wonder if it works as well as a real one. The month of Felsight begins, and our cage traps have already proven their worth, as they have captured an entire raid of mandrills. It is not proper to do so, but I feel the need to taunt my predecessors. I have begun building a second farm, and the congestion of horses annoys me. I have designated a number of them for slaughter. A miner has found a river, lava, magma, or whatever, and fortunately, it did not flood. Summer begins, the noble's quarter is finished, and the House Barite representative is whining about it not being high quality enough, but screw him. Our legendary miner is headed out to work on the elephant trap, and the elephants ran away from him. Things didn't fare so well for the non-legendary miner, though, who got severely injured. But as the season continues, more migrants arrived and right into a herd of elephants, and one of them died. It's 2 dead, actually, and 1 injured. But then the migrants led the elephants into the trap that I'd constructed, and 6 elephants were captured. Shortly after, we completed the elephant trap, and things have been rather quiet recently. I'm starting to worry something is about to happen. I am worried about the future of our fortress. Namely, the next rulers will not be as security-minded as I am. So I shall flood the chasm with magma and lava, and kill all of the unnamed horrors within. The construction has started on a second farm, and a metalsmith has been possessed, since I am doing heavy-scale lava flooding right now. Building a magma forge isn't feasible, but once the chasm is filled, I have some spare steel bars standing by. The chasm has enough magma and lava in it now, and construction can proceed as planned. But a note to my successors: do not pull the switch near the chasm. It causes everything past it to die. From magma. The weather is getting cold as autumn arrives on the calendar. I'm worried about our possessed metalsmith. I can't get the lava forge up in time. But construction on the magma forge has just begun, and now it's a race against time. And a dwarven caravan arrived, and a thief appeared, and just as quickly, the thief was struck down. 2 more elephants were captured, and a farmer has been trampled to death. I traded some bone crafts and totems for some more food. Not that we need more food, though. A fire imp sprung from an ambush and threw a fireball at a nearby carpenter, injuring it enough so that it could go over and kill it. And then a peasant came up and wrestled the fire imp to death. Sandstone has begun, and the season continues. Unfortunately, the magma forge cannot be completed in time, and the metalsmith went insane. He is currently running about babbling to himself. Correction, he ran into one of the channels and kept running upstream until he drowned. Yikes. But we have struck platinum. Good times. And we've found a leopard, and this brings our current captured animals up to 5 mandrills, 9 elephants, and 1 leopard. A war dog chased an elephant into a line of cage traps. More elephants have been caught while I wasn't looking, but we'll have to wait to get an exact count. In Timber, there was 2 more elephant-related deaths, and then we have an admission of guilt from Keyboard Fox. I suck at screenshots, so what I did was export a picture of the whole map and then copied out parts of that. First, here's an overview of the map. As you can see, there are some numbers indicating what we're going to see next. Here's 1.5 elephant, mandrill, whatever, traps that I've set up, and I have channels blocking off 1/2 of the map from the others, so animals have to go through these if they want to get across. Also, that's a platinum statue of me in that water blocked out island. And all of these little triangular carrots you can see are traps. The white ones are stonefall traps, and the red ones are weapon traps. In the third screenshot, we see the noble quarter, so there's more room for, well, expansion. Also, a party is getting started in the statue garden, and one of our new elephants is in attendance. The second farm and a small furniture storage is also shown. The chasm, with its beautiful red line of death, is in the 5th screenshot. That's the lever you need to remember not to pull. And by the way, a lot of weapon traps, 3 redundant bridges, and a magma blocking channel, and the beginnings of a strip mining project. Deep within the mountain, ore and magma forge, and smelter forge. Also, the magma floodgates linked to the Lever of Doom. I put down some channels just in case someone does pull the lever. And that concludes Keyboard Fox's possession of the fortress of Boatmurdered. And Locus is going to take a turn. The next goon in the line of something awful posters. The next Fortress Overseer of Fortress Boatmurdered is Locus, but Locus begins with a request. I propose that each one of us name a dwarf after ourselves when we end our reign or get demoted for gross negligence. I can retroactively do this for all the other previous rulers if you think it's a good idea. And then they begin. It is now the 1st of Granite of the year 1054, early spring. I have been selected as the interim ruler of the village of Boatmurdered, which is well on its way to becoming a grand fortress. In hostile lands such as these, security and provisions are my first and foremost concerns. Although I was worried when I discovered that we had no military forces to speak of, an inspection of our trap systems revealed that they are sufficient to defeat any attacking foe, from inside or outside, below a full-scale siege. I looked into wells as a possible route for invading Bremen, but I only found barrels of alcohol, as we only have a scattering of peasants to choose from, most of which seem to be pursuing their own professions. I will wait for new immigrants before I draft our army, and in the meantime, weapons and armor must be forged. And then Locus adds in a personal note. My thoughts linger on the sinister herd of elephants I saw hulking across the river today, and I am tempted to order the construction of special catapult battery which overlooks their territory in order to train our siege operators. Unfortunately, such slaughter would likely agitate the many animal handlers who have taken it upon themselves to capture and tame these monstrosities. For reasons I cannot fathom, but for now, there are more pressing matters to attend to. Specifically, provisions are not as high as I would like, especially with more immigrants coming soon. I have ordered some of our farm plots to be enlarged and ordered the planting of the year's first crops. Also noting that we need copper ore, I surveyed the walls of the cave river and noticed a small vein. I ordered a tunnel to be dug to the source, but work is slow, as we only have 2 miners and one of them is resting to heal a very nasty-looking wounded left arm. I do not know what caused it. In fact, I'm noticing that several peasants and farmers are in similar shape. But success, because Kulet Origanub, our legendary miner, has struck silver while digging into the malachite vein. As I received an early warning that the cave river was flooding, I noticed that our current bridge is extremely unstable and dangerous in such a situation. Fortunately, the dwarves and animals on the bridge were not swept off it when hit, but we may not have such luck in the future. I have ordered a pair of small bridges to be constructed upstream and downstream of the main walkway in such a way that it will not compromise the drawbridge function. But as I was completing the task, an elven caravan has arrived, and their friendship with nature seems to have protected them from the grazing elephants. I do not know the state of our crafts or trade goods, but the bins are being sent to the trade depot in preparation. On a personal note, I do grow to hate the elves more and more as time passes. Still somewhat low on food, I have ordered several elephants to be put up for slaughter. And moments later, immigrants, specifically 19 of them, with a mayor and a Mason's guildmaster, and a House Ferrite representative, and our mayor, who is named Ral Athirsolith. On a personal note, I do not trust that name. But I don't think the mayor cares, because he's settled into the nobles' quarters, and is already demanding 7 fortress guards. I am drafting assorted peasants and merchants to fulfill this, and I'm using the 3 sword dwarf immigrants as the first squad in our new army. And a ban of exporting red spinel has just been introduced by the mayor. For some reason? What does he think our enemies are going to do? Stab us with jewels? But Locus then admits, I've had little sleep in the past 2 days, and must retire for tonight. I have quite a bit of work to do before the upcoming season. Mainly outfitting our soldiers with steel equipment and setting up improved magma crafting centers and managing our food supply. I hope that our coming summer proves to be favorable for Boatmurdered. Which concludes that post in the thread. Because moments later, Keyboard Fox hops back in. It is becoming a quickly reoccurring character, it seems. Dude, we have 5 metric fuck tons of prepared food. We are not low on food. Locus responds with, oh, prepared food? So those are some kind of dainty, fancy pants dwarves that don't sit in the dark and gnaw on cold mushrooms? That seems undwarf-like. Tourette Dog then adds in an addition, it's dwarf bread, man. The cat peed on it, and it doubles as a lethal throwing weapon. Locus then seemingly agrees, saying, that makes sense. I bet it menaces with spikes of bread too. Sometime later, Locus returns to the thread and adds in, on the 1st of Hematite 1054, early summer. After being informed by my kitchen staff that we have a large stockpile of prepared meals, I'm not sure I understand the purpose of these, I have focused my attention mainly on our magma forging area. I am ordering the construction of another magma smelter and bronze bars to be cast. The craft business was just interrupted by the withdrawal from society by Tosid Fiery Abbey, who is unfortunately a novice glassmaker. Perhaps his mood has been caused by our lack of skilled and healthy miners, who have not yet excavated space for a magma furnace. I have called off the malachite mining operations until this area has been completed. Meanwhile, I am worried about the very unsafe construction of the halls near our magma forges. Rather than leaving occasional natural supports of living stone, the previous ruler has instead dug out the entirety of this wide hallway and built a rather unstable-looking stone pillars in there. I noticed a small lava flooding space around a pillar blocked by floodgates, which is presumably part of an emergency system to collapse the roof. But if a careless or angry dwarf were to dislodge them, the consequences would be catastrophic to anyone nearby. I was, however, coordinating operations and drafting unskilled mechanics into mining occupations, and another flood struck. We were not so lucky this time, as the worker Aban Lissensnod was claimed by the river currents. However, my improved safety bridges saved the life of a farmer girl and her adorable kitten, who clung to the lower bridge until the flood receded. Kobold thieves infiltrated the entrance to the fort, somehow by bypassing the cage traps. 2 were ripped apart by the fortress guard, while the last was chased away by a small cat. And there were more invaders. It's good that our cage traps are still functional, and here they are after thwarting a troop of mandrills. I'm a bit worried about the amount of animals we have already captured and tame. Few seem to adopt them, except for the terrifying battle-scarred elephants. The amount of stray animals, though, has become a nuisance, but no one seems to have the knowledge or the will to geld any of them. I foresee this being a problem in the future, but I cannot bring myself to slaughter any needlessly. I have used some of our steel to create glassworking shops as well, as an additional smelter. This will speed up metal production a great deal. Unfortunately, although the reclusive glass-working dwarf has claimed a standard glass furnace, he has not found all that he requires. But I suspect that he is missing a turtle shell. So I have asked those at the fishery to start processing fish, in case one turns up. I find it hard to believe that there is no shells in this entire fortress, so perhaps it's a specific type of rare glass he seeks? But it was all for naught. He has gone insane, and wanders and babbles around with a depressed look on his face. Perhaps it was for the best, though, as he seemed to have an unhealthy interest in demons and strange idols. Note: he later drowned in the main drawbridge entrance. I oversaw a lot of cage management earlier. They are becoming exceedingly full, and the trappers are demanding more empty cages. All stray elephants have been transported into a single cage, and the animal trainers are working on taming the savage elephants as well as the mandrills. I would like our mandrills to be chained up somewhere near sensitive areas, as a form of defense. Although they cannot be trained as war mandrills, they surely would attack some invaders and serve as a psychological defense to weaken the enemy morale. And apparently, 2 stray elephants, one adult and one calf, were accidentally released and are now interrupting workers' jobs nearby. The workers seem to be almost as disturbed by the beasts as I am, tame or not, and they have stopped complaining about the lack of traps, and I'm unsure how to proceed in this situation. Perhaps it is time for my earlier catapult battery plans. The area they seem to be inhabiting is densely populated, but I will begin construction of the siege parts and observe their movements. On the topic of the main work and storage area, I must complain about the decision of the previous rulers who placed it out in the open. It is a horribly cluttered mess of barrels and shops, which are easily immobilized by a single problem, as proven by these stray elephants. As I write, the stray, supposedly tame elephant appears to have struck down a pet war dog who wandered too close. It was probably Aitakold Bud or Rainstalked, the rather large battle-scarred mother of the calf. I only hope that the siege workshop isn't close enough to be interfered with by her. Although I confess that this place has proven too confusing to locate it myself. Whichever elephant was responsible for the earlier carnage, it was the male calf Icadolatud, who just smote Cyril Zenom, another war dog, who, although not dead, probably has little time left on this earth. His name translates to Helm Crushed, which is sadly appropriate, as he seems to have had his head stomped upon, and is limping along and passing out frequently. I hope to do something before this elephant gets a name for its infamy. I do not know who started the fight, but it makes no sense either way. If I had a way of finding out who trained these animals, there would be a public flogging. Icadolatud just finished off Cyril. But just now, I heard word that someone, most likely a war dog, has struck down the elephant calf. which wandered near the main bridge entrance. While watching this, I witnessed as another stray elephant, most likely released from the animal trainer cages, wandering nearby. It did not seem to disturb the dwarves as much as I Licolitud did, and one actually took it by the collar and led it towards the cage where I Catolitud lurks before being scared away. I have a theory that once an elephant tastes dwarf blood, which surely is how this particular creature got her name, they cannot be tamed properly. Once again, a public flogging would be appropriate, and the mayor has ended his mandate ban on exporting red gems. Still a mystery as to why he had it in the first place. Soon, he'll probably be mandating something worse. I have ordered a construction of a catapult just to the east of Icatolitud, but no one seems to be working on it. Perhaps the parts stored are too close to her, or the workers are just incredibly lazy. Summer has ended, and although I have accomplished some of my goals, there is much more to be done. 1st of Limestone, 1054, early autumn. The population of Boatmurdered has risen all the way up to 76, with 3 miners, 5 carpenters, and plenty of masons. Locus notes, Icadolitud has been a thorn in our sides for much too long. I assigned more war dogs to the small defense force, activated the squad, and stationed them near her. After a few minutes, Unib Besmerlatur appeared on the scene, and began bravely striking Icadolitud with her iron sword, gouging out both of the accursed behemoth's eyes. Finally, a dwarf who shares my hatred for this beast. The battle continued, with Unib sustaining only minor wounds to her body from the blind rampaging of the massive elephant. Striking again with her sword, she heavily wounded Icadolitud in the chest. The last moments of the battle were confused, as Icadolitud passed out, and was set upon by Unib, and the captain of the guard, who had nothing to help before, and was most likely trying to steal her glory. Unib's pet horse further obscured the fight by standing on the prone elephant until it finally bled to death. Unib seems to be thrilled about the battle. Icadolitud's reign of terror has ended, and Unib has been promoted to the leader of her squad, in honor of this accomplishment and her bravery in battle. Hurrah, dwarves! In other news, a large dwarven caravan has been spotted and is making its way towards us. As I was waiting for them, a kobold showed its marked stupidity by running towards the gate and getting slaughtered by a war dog, a soldier, and a cat. Several of the dwarves seem to have taken the fool's notion that there are supplies out in the far fields, and one of them, a stonemason, has paid the price for it. Rest in peace. Our fortress is now at a population of 75. I have traded some assorted low-value bone crafts for the exotic and interesting meats that the caravan carried, as I know the dwarves have favorite meals. We may not be able to supply otherwise, and the corpse of Icadolitud is rotting where it fell. I suppose that no one wants to bury it or cook it. I noticed that there were many dwarves idling about in the hallways, and that all of the food that we had just bought was sitting in the trade depot. When I asked them about it, they said that they had been previously ordered to not touch any of the food or do any sort of manual transportation. I ordered several to resume these duties, but it may be a problem again in the future. Mechanics seem to be especially lax. A fisher dwarf nearly starved to death when a tower cap mushroom grew and blocked his path, locking him in the mill room. Fortunately, his cries were heard before it was too late, and a dwarf armed with an axe struck that mushroom down. Our mayor has mandated that we make 2 red spannel items. Perhaps we had none before, so his export ban felt incomplete. And a group of mischievous frogmen leapt from the river today, killing a war dog and a stray cat. They were quickly struck down by a member of the fortress guard and various peasants. The jack of all trades, Urdim Anil, As was her first name, has been possessed by an unknown force, and has collected a stockpile of random materials in the craftsdwarf shop. Unfortunately, he's stopped and is muttering to himself. He has a piece of clear glass, so I suspect he requires more, which is a problem, as the dwarves kept taking our silk bags for other purposes than to transport sand. A dwarf has also organized a party at the sandstone statues, which is further slowing down our operations. And with autumn coming to an end, early winter has begun in the year 1054. Due to laziness and poor time management on the part of our work dwarves, the red spinel item mandate missed its deadline. The mayor expressed disappointment and enacted a new mandate forbidding the export of jet items. I am somewhat unsure of how to proceed, improving our fortress in a functional way. My main effort on this front is the construction of a secondary living and dining quarters for the dwarves who work on the bank of the magma flow. The slow progress in constructing this area is a constant reminder of how inefficient our metal operations are because of the remote location. And now that food and drinks are provided for the smiths, I must also build traps near the workshops as they are too vulnerable right now, and occupy what will be some of our most talented and important dwarves. Due to laziness and poor time management on the skills part of the work dwarves, no clear glass was ever produced, and as Erdemnal went insane. He started babbling at the dwarves nearby and then ran halfway across the bridge, dove into the channel and removed his pants, and then went streaking haphazardly across the hallways until he reached his room. He's been locked in to prevent his lack of garb from upsetting the more, sensitive lady dwarves. Note, he later died of thirst. Sun's moving across the sky, and it was starting to reflect off of the floor on the ground here in my living room, and it was making it extremely warm here. I may have to change the camera angle soon. Locus continues. For the less functional aspect of the fort, I've begun the construction of a complex of large tombs to hold the remains of previous rulers of this fort. I have given the smaller tomb to Kello, as he used much of his allotted funds commissioning a statue portrait. Some might say that my own tomb is receiving extra attention, but I believe that I am entitled. And if someone else wanted to build a fancy tomb for themselves when they had the chance, they should have thought of it. And then Locus inserts a personal note. To those who intern me to my casket when I pass from this world, please use those 2 provided chains to tether trained mandrels or a suitable substitute to guard my bones from thieves and vandals. P.S. The last part kind of rhymes. I will have it engraved on the floor door at once. The long and quiet winter has ended, along with the interim reign of the ruler of the fort. The magma work is almost complete. All that remains now is the stone hauling jobs and resumption of the well construction, assorted additional traps, and the placement of furniture. And Locus also provides some screenshots of the other rulers of the fortress. Threat Doge, who is quite fond of marble, copper, and red diamond and crystal glass and amulets, is a fan of mules for their stubbornness and snakemen for their impressive tails, and when possible prefers to consume turtle and dwarven wine. Second in the list, we have Mayor Grendel, who has been quite content lately and is fond of obsidian, copper, bolts, greaves, gloves, and batmen for their mystery, and when possible prefers to consume cavefish and cow's milk as well as hates lizards. Callow, previously retired ruler, has been happy lately, and she was admired her own fine container lately. She has complained of hunger lately, and adopted a new pet recently, is fond of limestone, aquamarine, mangrove, clear glass, and amber, rings cats for their aloofness and werewolves for their howls, and when possible prefers to consume tiger and hates flies, and is a bit of a wrestler. Lastly, of course, we have Locus. He's fond of moonstone, iron, and adventuring, mangrove, pearl, mules for their stubbornness, batmen for their mystery, and when possible prefers to consume dwarven rum, dwarven syrup, and hates purring maggots, and is quite agile and tough. Locus also attaches a map of the fortress and how it's progressed. Things are looking pretty well for Boatmurdered at this time. That concludes Locus's time with Boatmurdered, and the thread continues with StarkRavingMad, who takes over the save file, intending, of course, to improve the longevity of Boatmurdered. In my world, some time has passed, and I have permitted the sun to go down so that I could move to the comfy chair. Otherwise, there would be a lot of glare where I'm currently sitting. And so begins the journal entry of Ral StarkRavingMad Swearington in the year 1054, late winter. The overseer of the fortress Boatmurdered. So there I am, last night tending my tavern in Camilleville, when in walks some slick-backed, noble-looking cocksucker, and he tells me that I have the great honor of accepting an overseer position for one of our outposts. Honor. My hairy ass. More than likely, someone found out about that gold strike that I had my men working out in the halls of sorrow, and this is their way of getting me out of the picture, while they move in on it. But what can I do? The order is signed by the king himself, straight from cattle fucking Logum fuck, which means that any attempt by yours truly to wriggle out of this great honor is going to end up with me getting a hammering from the captain of the Royal Guard. Nice situation, eh, Chief? Well, pain or damage don't end the world, or despair, or fucking beatings. The world ends when you're dead. Until then, you've got more punishment in store. Stand it like a dwarf, and give some back. That's what I always say. I take a look at the maps, and sure enough, this outpost is stuck in the middle of nowhere, smack in the smooth points of pride. Boatmurdered, they call it. A name which doesn't bode well for much of fucking anything. This morning, I'm getting my supplies for the trip together, and what do I see? A bunch of hoople-head cocksuckers loading up their wagons, and lo and behold, those horses all pointed the same way as mine. I made a few quiet inquiries, and they're all heading for fucking Boatmurdered too. I set out with all haste, figuring it would be best if I got a head start on all of these assholes. So maybe I could get the place in some sort of order before they get there. Now I'm taking a quick breather, and I figured I should take some sort of record of this trip, especially since I'm not sure the plan isn't for me to be fucking stabbed in the back in some other way and end up thrown into a bottomless chasm or something. Document what's happening, you see, and then, at least, if I get bumped off, there will be some record of how it happened. And maybe my men back at the capital can get revenge for my poor damned soul. I probably won't be writing much in this thing until I get to Boatmurdered. I need to move quick and stay ahead of the rabid pack of immigrants, breathing down my neck. I swear I can hear their mules already. It is the early spring of 1055. Well, I made it to Boatmurdered, and my initial impressions can be set forth in 3 words. What the fuck? I'm going to include a few quick sketches of the place. Artist's impression, if you will. So, excuse me if these are a little rough, but I have to fucking try to get my mind around what I'm facing here. To begin with, all of our fucking workshops and trade goods are sitting outside, in the fucking rain. One of the previous overseers must have been some sort of shallow-dwelling skygazer because having our production out there is just inhumane to the poor hoopleheads who have to stand out there. I almost went fucking crazy having to be under the goddamn open sky for a whole trip here instead of a nice, safe cavern. And some of these poor bastards have been working in the open for 4 years now. 4 years! 4 years standing out in the rain, or even worse, under that horrifying, yawning expanse of an open blue sky. Fuck that, moving everything inside. Oh, and you see all of those E's down there? Yeah, at the bottom. Elephants. The previous overseer must have had some sort of sick fucking fascination with them, because we have elephants everywhere. Elephants in cages, elephants in the halls, elephants shitting in the dining room, everywhere. I don't know what to do with them. I guess starting butchering them and hope that they make a good roast. You may also notice the lack of a road or a bridge to the west. Apparently, in excess of fucking caution, the previous overseers blocked off the entire mountain with rivers, leaving no trade route for the human caravans. I'm going to fix that as well. I'm a businessman at heart, and the caravans will come through before I am done here. Most of the poor bastards living here in 2 square rooms with a chest and not even a fucking cabinet. I'm not even going to try and fix that for the current population, but I think that we can do a little better for the new cocksuckers on the way. Here we have a gigantic hall where the roof is held up by fucking matchsticks, and a stiff breeze is going to make the whole thing collapse. I don't know what kind of suicidal maniac put this together, and I'm not going to change it now, but you can bet I'm not sticking one fucking foot in there. I have a lot of work to do. There's this room full of levers. I don't know what any of them do, and I'm not going to try and figure it out. With the way this place is set up, any of them could make the whole place collapse like an accordion. Armok, help me. To start with, I'm going to move our food production facilities over here, near where the farm is. Kitchen, brewery, butcher, fish cleaner, the whole 9 yards. And I'll get some food storage over there too. Oh, and did I mention that the dining room currently seats 8, and we have 74 fucking dwarves? We're going to work on that too. New dining room and a great hall will be right here, across from the food production. New workshop area and goods storage is going to be over here, south of the Hall of Suicide. Should make life easier for the metalsmiths too. As if you couldn't tell from the excess of traps and walling off the fortress from the world, the previous overseers seemed to be a bit of the military mindset. Me, I'm a trades dwarf at heart. All of the smelters have been going full force, pounding out steel and iron weapons of fucking war. I instructed them to change their focus a bit. And an elven caravan wandered into our space while I was grumbling to myself. Of course, with no road or bridge, I don't know if the pointy-eared cocksuckers will ever even make it to the depot. Sorry, elves. StarkRavingMad peers in the other direction and notices some immigrants arriving over the hill, and states quite bluntly, well, the immigrants are here, and we also got a broker, and some pompous asshole claiming to be head of the Craftsdwarfs Guild. I think he's just looking for a free room without doing any work, but what can you do? 22 more dwarves, counting the nobles, so this should be fun. I'm gonna drill out some new bedrooms north of the Suicide Hall. The new broker immediately endears himself to me by mandating the production of toy forges. I'm tempted to tell him that I mandate that he go fuck himself, but I think better of it and just put in the work order for them. The dwarves working here are the laziest bunch of hoopleheads I've ever seen. If they aren't drinking, they're sleeping it off. Or storing an item in the stockpile, boss, which seems to be code for fucking around carrying things from place to place instead of doing some real work. I have 6 fucking carpenters, and I asked for this workshop to be built 3 months ago. You think that anyone gets around to it? It's a 10-minute job, but they're too lazy to do it. Busy doing what? I don't fucking know. Since without the workshops up, they can't carpenter anything either. I have 4 miners, and 2 of them apparently sleep 20 hours a day. One is so injured that he can't walk. And the last one claims to be the previous ruler of this place, but he's the only one who actually does any digging. I would also like to note that I think it's really funny that StarkRavingMad just completely forgoes all of the requests to, acknowledge previous dwarves in the fortress. But let's continue. Noticing that we have a military of 3, not counting our fortress guards, I go ahead and draft a few more, giving me 2 squads so I can rotate who is on duty and who is slacking off in the barracks. And now the mayor storms into my office and demanded that I stop the export of red spinel items. Considering I've never seen a fucking red spinel and I have no idea what one is, I told him that I was sure I could accommodate his request. Apparently the Craftsdwarfs Union rules preclude me from directly asking for anything specific, including the fucking mini forges that our beloved broker storms into my office every day and demands. The best I can do is tell them to make toys, and hope that they happen to figure out that means mini forges, and not boats, or hammers, or puzzle boxes, or all of this other shit that I'm now buried under, and not a single mini forge. So the broker is pissed at me, and there is shit all I can do about this since I wouldn't know how to make a fucking mini forge to save my life. I need a drink. But by the early summer, some progress had been made by StarkRavingMad, and he shows us his new food production area. Picture of the new food production area, new dining, which I'm about to have engraved, and a new elephant in a fucking cage room. We had 3 trappers, a profession that was only going to get them killed, and Armok knows the last thing that we need is more trapped animals anyway. I told them to make clothes instead, since half of the dwarves are here walking around in tatters, and they're pissed about it. The manager demanded a clear glass window in his room to fucking look at what? Your room doesn't have a hole leading to the outside. Your room doesn't have a view of anything. The best I can do is put that window 2 feet away from a stone wall, and he doesn't give a shit. He wants a window. Fine. I hope he falls through it while drunk. We have some really messed up rooms that serve as a bedroom, dining room, office, and everything for all the nobles at once, and started carving out some real noble rooms, deeper in the mountain, for the next batch of nobles to show up. And the human caravan is here, but unfortunately I couldn't get the road built in time. So, no wagons. I'll have it through before the year is up, though. The humans bring me a load of meat and cloth. I trade them an elephant in a cage for everything they own. Have fun with that one, assholes. Finally, I finished making the broker's mini-forges, and he immediately issued a mandate that no mini-forges could be exported, so I guess the cocksucker really likes his fucking mini-forges. It's like Disney adults. One of my farmers took over a crafts dwarf shop, and he's babbling about the gods and artifacts and sketching pictures of quarries and ore and trees and shells and everything under the fucking sun. I'm sketching pictures of the fortress guard lopping his head off in about 2 weeks. On the bright side, the road is through. Welcome to greater society. Boatmurdered. And oh, for the love of... Sure, why not? More migrants. Come on, cocksuckers. The more the merrier. I'm not sure if that's picking up, but... just gonna let it run by. I finally figured out something useful to do with all of these trapped animals. The Burnham and Bailey Happy Time Zoo, still under construction. Friends, if you like to look at elephants or mandrills, or more fucking elephants and mandrills, this is the place for you. And as for the farmer, well, it's kind of ironic considering my nickname. At least we have that craftsworth shop back. It seems that the farmer has gone StarkRavingMad. A frogman jumped out of the well and surprised Cybrek, one of the military dwarves. He killed the froggy pretty easily, but then he somehow got stuck in the well. So now little Timmy here is dying of thirst because he can't drink from the well that his fat ass is stuck in. His friends don't seem to have any trouble drinking around him. I guess they brought straws or something. We've made it all the way to autumn, and I told my engineers to engrave the walls and the floor outside of the new dining room. They proceed to decorate the room with some of the most horrifying shit I've ever seen. I mean, what the fuck are these dwarves trying to eat in here? But over by the entrance, we've got a little bit of an elephant issue happening down south. I'm starting to understand why the previous owner had 1 million of them in cages. 1 or 2 got pissed and they killed someone. And now the dwarves are trying to get the items from the guys that died, and the elephants are just running wild over everyone. A couple of the elephants got caught in the remaining cage traps, but 1 or 2 got through. The brave military men of Boatmurdered assemble by the front gate, and they brave themselves for a rush at the mighty elephants. And it was about then that the fucking dwarven caravan arrived. I ordered my military to hold fast and let the caravan guardsmen get themselves slaughtered by the elephants before we do. Which was also right about when a goblin thief jumped out and got clobbered by a stonefall trap. So the merchants arrived to see blood and vomit everywhere, us hauling corpses en masse to the graveyard, and a couple of rampaging elephants. Welcome to fucking Boatmurdered. I hope you like miasma. This elephant killed so many guys, he has a fucking full-on last name and title now, but one of the dogs finally knocked him unconscious. About 16 more elephants have showed up to support their buddies, and the funny thing is that the elephants keep trying to leave. They'll go down the passageway back towards the outside, and then some fucking dwarf wanders in to get the dead guy's pants, or whatever. And then it pisses the elephants right the fuck off, and they come charging back up the passage again. I guess I'd better put in a work order for some more fucking coffins, eh? Despite me telling the dwarves to stay inside and stop going out there, they continue to try and recover corpses. Some things never change. And it's time for harsher measures. I told everyone to stop fucking gathering anything. But it doesn't matter what I tell these morons. They're bound and determined to march to their deaths. Harsher fucking measures are necessary. I install 2 front doors and lock them. No one gets in or out. Boatmurdered is closed until further notice. This basically stops the elephant problem for now, as a temporary measure. I'm hoping that they get bored when they figure out no more fucking toys are gonna be coming out to play, and wander off. We lost 20 dwarves to this debacle. Of course, just to add insult to injury, about 17 snakemen jump out of the river. We don't really lose any there, except for a couple of dogs and cats, though. Yeah, you elephant assholes. Enjoy choking on that miasma. Meanwhile, one of my clothers made just about the awesomest shirt ever. Have a look at this pigtail tunic named Broiled Ages. All craft store ship is of the highest quality. It is decorated with pigtail cave lobster shell and encircled with bands of pigtail. It is made from pigtail cloth. This object is adorned with hanging rings of turquoise and platinum, and menaces with spikes of steel, sandstone, and tin. On the item is an image of dwarves and pigtail. The dwarves are speaking with the dwarves. On the item is an image of dwarves and rock crystal. The dwarves are speaking with the dwarves. Sounds like an image of great debate. But winter settles in, and StarkRavingMad is pretty much fed up with this place. I've started Project Fuck the World, a top-secret attempt to funnel magma into the outside and kill those elephants. I'll kill all of those fucking elephants. I don't know if I'll have time to finish it, though. I've also started a project, Get Me the Fuck Out of Boatmurdered, which I'm hoping to finish that one by the end of the year. Remember how I told you that I ran into some miner claiming to be the former ruler of this place? Well, that's just how the sneaky bastard got out of here. I finally figured it out, and I'm taking the same route as soon as I can. See, just convince some poor cocksucker to say that he's me. Enough platinum and he'll go for it. And then I slip right the fuck out of town. Easy as pie. I already found someone who looks enough like me for it to work. I just have to wait for the right moment to escape this elephant-ridden hellhole. But the elephants don't seem to be leaving. They love their stench and miasma-filled tunnel, so still no one can get outside. The wood is outside, which means that my carpenters don't have a lot to do right now. But I know if I cracked the front door for them to get out and get wood, they'd go fucking running down the elephant tunnel to say hello to their gigantic angry-tusked friends. On the brighter side, we have plenty of beds, since most of their previous fucking occupants are now dead. So we don't need the carpenters to make much right now. And you know, sometimes you think things can't really get much worse. And then it does. Hello, boys. I'm supposed to be scared of a little fucking goblin siege? I'm already trapped in the fortress by 4 legendary elephants. Shit. I'm just hoping that you assholes managed to kill the elephants for me. I'll give you a fucking medal. The worst thing you could do to me would be open the door, causing the lemming rush of death down the elephant tunnel again. Come on. Bring it on. Apparently the elephants don't mind the goblins. They're best friends. Oh, you beat up the dwarves? Well, by all means, go on through, be our guest. We'll just be out here chewing on some of these dwarf bones if you need us. The goblins are totally confused by all this and would have decided to go stand around by the channel and, hey, sign on the door says closed. Shit, Bob. I thought that you said it was open until 9 on Saturdays. What do we do? Maybe we should ask the elephants. They seem to have killed a lot of them. The goblins just lazily took a few pot shots at a stray cat wandering around the front door. And then they just stayed out in the elephant tunnel. I think they're starting their own little town in there. Elephants and goblins living together in peace and harmony, joined by only a burning hatred for dwarves. Operation Fuck the World has failed. I struck water with my aqueduct, and the channel to go outside is now filled with water. Whoever comes after me may try and continue the project. They'll just have to route to a different tunnel. Or they may try to build up the military enough to where they can do a frontal assault on the elephant and goblin army. Me, I'm just past fucking caring. You see, spring has sprung and I'm taking my fucking chance to get out of town. That poor sucker will take my name, and by the time they figure out he's not me, and he's just some hooplehead who can't run a wagon, much less a fortress, I'll be long gone. New name, new town, new fortune. Nothing's worth staying here. I'm leaving this journal in the desk in the overseer's office. To whoever finds this journal, good fucking luck to you. Now I'm going to step back a little bit because there's a little bit of outside of world building here. StarkRavingMad does give a pretty hefty overview to the next player and explains the situation. Also expresses a thought that maybe it would be wise to go back to a previous save file and just say screw all of his mistakes. But thankfully the group continues on, and Bremen is our next fortress overseer. This morning I found the mangled body of a fellow dwarf in the hills outside of the capital, surrounded by elephant tusks. I didn't think he'd be complaining, so I emptied out his pockets. I knew it was going to be a lucky day for me this morning, before the guards found me sleeping in the back of the warehouse and kicked me out. Not only was this guy loaded, but he had a piece of paper directing him to take charge of one of the colonies, someplace called Boatmurdered. Whoever named this place must have had a weird sense of humor. Well, I figured the place had never seen that guy's face, so I took the paper, and the money, of course, and started following the directions on the piece of paper. And I finally found the place. The directions led me through a hidden passage that looked strangely like an escape tunnel. It wasn't till I got inside and tried to find out who was in charge that I found out why. It seems this place is under siege by a combined force of goblins and elephants, and the last ruler dug the tunnel to escape. It sounded like a good idea to me, but when I tried to open the door to the escape tunnel, the whole thing collapsed. I guess I'm in for the duration. Everything's in chaos here, and no one can go outside because of the elephants and goblins. The dwarves kept acting like I should know what to do, so I told them to dig some fortifications we could shoot outside from. The other dwarves informed me, to my surprise, that the goblins had bows too. It was a frightening concept and made me long for the escape tunnel. But I had already noticed the other dwarves' skeptical looks at me, so I ordered them to do it anyway, and said it would all work out. While I was working on excavating the tunnel this morning, a bunch of dwarves ran in. I panicked and tried to hide in the tunnel, but they all grabbed me and ran for the main hall. I was beginning to regret my deception when I noticed everyone was cheering. It turns out that the goblins had all left. They probably got bored or something. Everyone else thought I'd known about it from the beginning. And now that the fortifications were almost done, we were in a perfect position to deal with the elephants. Between the military and a ballista, we managed to kill some of the elephants and force the rest away from the fortress. I've declared today a national holiday. With the fortress safe, I finally got around to asking how much this job pays. All the other dwarves looked puzzled, and they finally explained to me that they don't use money, and that everyone just works together. There's no way that I'm going to keep risking my life in a fortress surrounded by goblins and elephants. So I ordered the smiths to start minting coins and sent a request to the capital for a bookkeeper. We've also sighted an elven caravan approaching. I wonder if they'll mind the fact that the entrance to our fortress is surrounded by the rotting bodies of elephants and dwarves. Not that it will matter, however, because I commissioned a bracelet in honor of our victory. Well, actually, I didn't so much as commission it. I went to visit the craftsman and he was babbling about dead cities and awakening of the ancient gods, or something. I also have no idea where these cheese comes in, but I'm not going to question it. In other news, I traded some stone trinkets to the elves for berries and cloth. It turns out all the trade goods were out in the depot, since no one could bring them back in, what with the elephants and all. And I've taken steps to make sure that the elephants never menace this fortress again. The others think I'm paranoid, but they're all fools. The elephants will return, and unless we're ready, they'll trample every last one of us to dust. A bookkeeper arrived from the capital, and already our people are beginning to hoard their precious coins. Of course, some can no longer afford rooms to sleep in, but this hopefully makes room for the most recent wave of immigrants, which I was unable to prepare for due to the goblin and elephant siege. Disaster struck today when the brewers came to me and told me that we were running out of spirits, and there was nothing left to brew. Turns out I forgot to order the farms to start in the spring. How silly of me. This ruler stuff sure is complicated. But before I had a moment's notice, another disaster has struck. Our scouts have reported a herd of elephants approaching the fortress. And due to lack of time and cages, only 2 of the cage traps have been reloaded. And this manages to catch 2 elephants, but the rest make it through. Meanwhile, the dwarves assigned to the ballista duty think that this would be a great opportunity to eat, drink, or sleep. One of our ballista operators finally arrives at the scene, and we get our second unpleasant surprise. The ballistas are incredibly inaccurate, even at short range. But thankfully, one of the ballista arrows rang true. Success at last. The ballista instantly kills an elephant and hurls the body back a good 20 feet. Successive ballista shots manage to kill another elephant, but then disaster strikes when a dwarf wanders in and gets killed by an elephant. All the other dwarves, seeing opportunity for new capitalistic riches, begin to rush towards the body to grab his valuable equipment. Remembering the stories I heard about my predecessor, I hurriedly order the outer door to be locked. But the door is stuck open. Sabotage! The elephant sympathizer! The traitor! That Quilsing! That monarch butterfly? Apparently showing incredible coordination, a monarch butterfly flew into the door's workings just before the time of the attack and jammed it open. With all of the bodies and items left by the elephants, no one is doing such a low priority task as cleaning up bug remains. Meanwhile, the ballista operators, seeing the riches beyond their carved fortifications, gleefully follow the crowd out the main front door and onto the elephant-choked tunnel. Assigning more dwarves to operate the ballistas depletes the remaining supply of arrows without effect. My marks dwarves ran out of bolts. But there are still 2 elephants remaining. There's only one chance left. I activate the entire military and send them in a measured charge at the elephants. The recruits, minus those eating, drinking, and sleeping, let out a mighty shout and charge. For the glory of Boatmurdered, no one can fault their bravery, only their results. And of course, many dwarves perished that day. After consulting diagrams and schematics left by my predecessors, I think I found a way to seal off the fortress. I gave an order to pull the flint lever in the statue garden. Pull the damn lever! This sealed off the front gates, leaving water remaining. Of course, pulling the lever had entirely foreseeable consequences. But oh well, they were going to die anyways. With the survivors holed up inside the fortress, I began organizing things to the best effect. Without wood, I can't produce more ballista bolts. But the lava forges and smelters are able to produce a trickle of bronze bolts. I order as many dwarves as I can spare to arm themselves with crossbows, and hope that they can find some without going outside. Most of these dwarves think that this would be a perfect time to eat, drink, and sleep. Meanwhile, the elephants, bored without the steady stream of dwarves to kill, are slowly torturing a war dog that was stuck outside. And after a few months of being prickled by whatever crossbow bolts I can forge, the 2 remaining elephants keel over and die of blood loss. Victory. I ordered the dwarves lower the drawbridge, and the dwarves stream out for their first breaths of fresh air in months. I immediately order a door to be placed at the entrance to stave off the elephant hordes. However, within a month, I become aware that another herd is approaching. A single untrained marks dwarf stands ready to defend the crossing, but I doubt he'll be enough. I wonder why no dwarf has put up doors yet, or even cleared the equipment and refuse area. A quick inspection finds the problem. The huge number of tame animals combined with the narrow corridors is causing a truly horrible traffic jam. I order the corridors widened and as many animals as possible put into cages. Luckily, the elephant herd turns south and skips the fortress entirely. With the corridors beginning to be passable again, a dwarf manages to construct the door blocking off the elephants forever. In the final days of summer, a mason creates a controversial work of art to express his feelings of frustration and guilt. I have him imprisoned for defeatism. The artifact in question is called Dawn United, and features many elephants striking down dwarves. It is a marble amulet. All craftsdwarfship is of the highest quality. StarkRavingMad also chimes into the thread with his appreciation for the amulet. Stepping back for a second and looking at the thread as a whole, StarkRavingMad continues. 1 or 2 of the previous rulers died during my reign. I guess I should have documented that better, but it was kind of hard to keep track with the ground awash with dwarven blood and my panicked attempts to not permanently screw over the whole succession game. Bremen adds on with a most of them are dead, yes. I will try to give more concrete info on survivors as I end my turn. Locus also adds on to the thread by mentioning, well, at least we're resting peacefully in our tombs in spirit, presumably underneath the elephant remains, in the physical sense. But let's get back on topic. I ran out of coffins, writes Bremen. Then I ran out of designated graveyard space. Most of you are spending your eternal rest in the garbage dump. The fall caravan arrives, running right into a herd of elephants. The guards engage them for a bit, actually managing to take down two, before all but one flee towards the fortress with various elephant-caused injuries. The elephants hang back and wait. They know the caravan has to come back out over the bridge, and an elephant never forgets. But the dwarves are busy because Doran the child has been taken by a fey mood. Children, they grow up so fast. During all of the confusion of the strange moods and the traders attacking the elephants and getting ripped apart, apparently an imp wandered into one of the traps in the forging area and was torn to shreds. It's for the best, though. Imps can be quite dangerous with their gusts of flame. Thankfully, the elephants got bored without any slaughtering going on and leave, just in time for the caravan to make its escape. Sometime after the caravan left, some new migrants showed up. These go a long way towards replacing our losses. The current population is 74. I drafted most of them into the military and reorganized it into mostly a crossbow-armed force, with a few heavily armored swords dwarves supplied by the similarly armored town guard. Coincidence? I think not. But with the elephants leaving, mandrills appear and head for the trade depot. I mobilized the army, but they're busy sleeping, and didn't arrive in time to help. What an absolute shame. A mandrill has stolen a platinum ring. And, posts that face. I don't really know how to pronounce that, I'll be honest. But what's this? Apparently a number of mandrill are still across the river, and are unable to find a way across. It's time for revenge. A soldier reaches the far side of the river and fires his crossbow. Die, mandrills, die. With the mandrills bleeding out in the jungles, revenge is ours at last. But meanwhile in the fortress, our child prodigy begins their mysterious construction on a strange artifact. I don't approve of the artifact. Man, that kid needs counseling. Skunk Heather, they call it. An onyx toy boat. Studded with silver, decorated with onyx, and cave lobster shell. On the item is an image of dwarves and turtle shell. The dwarves are speaking with the dwarves. And of course, there's an elephant striking down the dwarf. With only winter left, my reign is soon complete. It's somewhat of an anticlimax, but it was a calm and uneventful winter. The new military trains hard at the archery range. I only have a few months to hammer a collection of peasants into a disciplined and capable military. Inspiration is provided by the huge numbers of elephants loitering just outside the walls with blood in their eyes. Spring has come, and with its coming, I've decided to retire and become the leader of the armed forces. Memories of the great elephant slaughters haunt my dreams. And only with a crossbow will I ever find peace. And with that, Bremen names himself the leader of the military, as a member of the Marksdwarf squad. The defenders of Boatmurdered, they cry. Tourette Dog adds into the thread, did my former ruler make it, or was he one of the lemmings who ate it against the elephants? And Bremen posts, in response, not only has he survived, but you've become an insanely leveled out dwarf, legendary in 2 skills, and every stat maxed out. So I wanted to draft you into the military as an uber swords dwarf in steel plate, but I didn't want to get any more former rulers killed. And we get to see this image of Tourette Doge at their best. She has been satisfied at work lately and admired a very fine road recently. She recently dined in a legendary dining room and was disgusted by miasma. And of course, she's ultra mighty, perfectly agile, and unbelievably tough. A legendary miner and engraver, and a capable grower as well. And thus ends the reign of Bremen, retired into the military for future chaos. And we continue forward with Boatmurdered. It is spring 1057, and our next overseer for Boatmurdered is Sankis. Today I have arrived to begin my job as director. The previous director of the fortress has left me quite a nice fortress to work with. It seems to be quite the typical dwarven stronghold. Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. What the fuck is with this fortress? After meeting with the former director and hearing all he cared to tell me, the fortress was now in my hands. Since the goblins' invasions and elephants have been a threat in the past, I plan to rectify it by ordering the construction of a series of tunnels to release lava into the world. I cancel all other orders and begin construction immediately. Seems like a callback to Operation Fuck the Planet if you ask me, but honestly I support this message. The plan is to bypass the botched area that was done by a previous ruler. I am also planning on relying on only 2 floodgates, and the pathway I have dug out will do the rest, guiding the lava to the outside and killing whatever threatens us. I scan the surroundings outside. These elephants, if they remain, will be our first target once it is done. Luckily, they do not attack. Suddenly, I receive a report that one of our jewelers, Besmer, has drowned. Unfortunately, I am unable to recover the body. It is suspected he committed suicide. I refocus the lava channels. While I do so, the yearly elven caravan comes. I look over our supplies and see we are not in need of any goods that they can give us. However, I do order the stills to full activity, since we have run out of drink. Today, however, a true criminal walks free. Eshtan Overbust, the jeweler of Boatmurdered, is released from his jail sentence. He was charged with failing to comply with orders given by the wonderful and generous governor, thereby disrupting our glorious capitalist economy. I will have to keep a close eye on this scum. Any more wrong moves from him, and he will be the first to fight in the upcoming gladiator arena. At this point, I notice my lava project is not being completed quick enough. I give this job a high priority. No mining dwarf is to do anything else during the duration of this assignment. Now it is the first of slate of spring, and there have been no more important events. I seem to have spoke too soon, however, because on the 9th, a horde of mandrills attacked the fortress. Thankfully, the troops arrive in time. A group of marks dwarves engage the mandrills from a distance, picking several off before engaging in melee. All the while, some dogs that have been stationed outside attack them as well. Soon, however, the battle is over. It is not without loss. However, one war dog and a marks dwarf perished. On the 2nd of Felsight, I receive word from a messenger that several nobles, along with some migrants, are due to arrive shortly. Damnation! As if I didn't have enough to worry about. Prior to the arrival of these immigrants, we had 73 dwarves. These immigrants bring us to 98. Alongside of a baron. With the advent of the baron arriving, we are in need of royal guards. I go around and appoint the most worthy role. Just as things were settling down once again, I received a report that one of my novice miners has been acting strangely and is no longer working. Shortly after, I receive word that he's claimed a mason shop and will not allow anyone inside. He remains there, babbling to himself. What he wants, I do not know. But hopefully he plans to do something productive. On a related note, I have procured artifact Voldioldub for my room. I figure I'm not being paid enough. Why not pad my room with some expensive items? Showing little respect for the dead, a masterwork of StarkRavingMad has been lost. If I get my hands on the one responsible, they will be killed. Just in time to cheer me up, I learn that the Feymood dwarf mentioned earlier has begun construction. Hopefully his item is useful, though I have my doubts. Just as I expected, the item is a useless basalt floodgate. You idiot. If I didn't need you, I'd station you in the lava pit. In fact, I may just do that anyway. Just an editor's note, I'm not totally sure why they're upset with this floodgate. I would totally use that for water or something, but I mean, hey. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality, after all. And of course, it has an image of a dwarf and an elephant. The dwarf is being struck down by the elephant. What else is there to write about, anyway? Future ruler of the fortress, Mangor Grendel, has posted. Please post a screenshot of the whole fortress in your next update. It's been a while since anyone has posted one. and I'm desperate to see what's going on. Sure thing, Sankis responds. Many new small additions have been added to the fortress, including that major widening of the road, which was designated by our previous ruler. That's probably the most notable visual change. A lot of other things are many small rooms that have been added, which have been seen pieced together in place to place as time has gone on, alongside of that long lava runway, which is going to be used to flood the surface, which I'm sure the elephants will appreciate. Down at the bottom, we can see the expanded ballista batteries, many more bedrooms, and various tunnels. With that beautiful screenshot now shown, our overseer admits to getting a little bit bored. Seriously, there's nothing going on. I got a bad year, I think. The rest of autumn and winter better be fucking awesome. It's not even like I'm missing stuff. It's gotten to the point where I'm making inane events into updates because everyone just goes about their business and nothing interesting happens. Oh well, sorry for the lack of updates. It takes a lot longer than I thought it would. But then thankfully they get back into character and continue. Summer, 1057. The summer flood came early this year. The ingenious series of bridges that a previous ruler made causes us to lose only a dog and a horse. Shortly after the flooding, human caravans arrive bringing several wagons. Among the humans is a diplomat. We accomplish nothing, and within minutes of him greeting me, he leaves. I don't think he likes me. So I had to entertain myself with something. I set some idlers to work. My first mission is to get rid of the embarrassing failed aqueduct. I also began a mass engraving job for those stone engravers. This will increase our wealth greatly. Nothing of importance happens until late summer. Finally, the lava world flood device is finished. And now, to test it, I usher everyone inside and order the lever be pulled. And it flows. So far, so good. It passes the aqueduct successfully and hits the river. I am just about to release the lava over the river when I look outside. I noticed the previous rulers had done extensive canal work. Were I to release the lava into the wild, these would instantly dry up on contact with the lava. Testing it now would be too risky. I will have to save it, else my test might make the most trafficked portion of our fortress a steamy death trap. And with that project put on pause, aside from the wounded soldier, unconscious and starving and dehydrated in the main hallway, the remainder of the summer was uneventful. Now, Sankis here is getting bored, and they've made that very clear. Since there is nothing fun happening, I decided to make my own events. Little did they know that this is actually kind of a premonition for Dwarf Fortress. With time, many of the greatest Dwarf Fortress storytellers would just simply make things happen. At this point, I would argue that more or less the game itself, once you know how to play it, is manipulating the game into telling the events that you want it to. So let's see what they had in store for Boatmurdered. The autumn of 1057 starts with death. Just 2 days into the season, a jeweler who had been sentenced to 3 weeks in jail dies of thirst. While elsewhere, in the fortress, a fire imp wanders into one of our traps. He never saw it coming. His body exploded. I turn back towards the outside. The Masons Guild leader is injured, knocked unconscious by elephants. They don't seem to finish him off. And then, to make matters better, one of our skilled metalsmiths is taken by a fey mood. This fuck better make something decent. And he claims a magma forge. Thankfully, we have what he needs for now. And not long after, a dwarven caravan arrives, with the city liaison. While the dwarves are busy offloading their goods, we get a visit from a few goblin snatchers. One is caught and killed in the trap, and the other attempts to run. Seconds later, I get a notice that the Fey Dwarf has begun a construction. I bet it has elephants on it. And I get another report of goblin thieves. 2 more step into the traps. Fucking idiots. Meanwhile, I speak to the liaison about the next caravan, and they ask if I have any requests. They really have nothing for us for now, but more seeds is never a problem, so I ask for them. And just as a mason went out to retrieve the wounded Masons Guild noble, a horde of mandrels attack. He tries to fend them off, but is taken down. The mason arrives to find his boss dead, and also begins fighting the mandrels. And he runs, and the mandrels dart for the trade depot. The caravan's axe dwarves head them off, however, making my deployment useless. Damn. But at least the mandrels are killed and the axe dwarves head back to their caravan. And a few moments later, the metalsmith finishes his artifact. Oh hey, fucking elephants, how predictable. The metalsmith had created Race dangles the lung of dripping, a silver amulet, crafts dwarfship of the highest quality, encircled with bands of silver, and on the item is an image of an elephant and a dwarf in silver. The dwarf is making a plaintive gesture, the elephant is striking a menacing pose. Pretty epic, if you ask me, frankly. And Sankis continues with, we seem to have a bit of a miasma problem, so I assign a few dwarves to clean up. We've reached mid-autumn, and what the fuck? As if we didn't have enough already. More migrants? At least it's only about 8 of them. And whoa! Out of nowhere, I get a message that Tourette Doge has been struck down. I can't find the body anywhere, though. I search all over for a sign of a battle, but there is none. And with that, autumn is pretty much over. Nothing else of note happens. The dwarves continue being fucking idiots. One jeweler starves to death in jail, and I search for more ore. Outside of character, Tourette Doge posts on the forums, try to go to the unit screen, picking the corpse and hitting C, or whatever the zoom to creature key is. That works sometimes. I must be avenged. And Sankis responds with, I tried that, but it didn't work at the time. They somehow retrieved your body, and you're now resting in your tomb. Or you would be if the dwarves weren't bogged down with 1,000 orders. By the way, your tomb pales in comparison to mine. And this is one of the things I made when there was literally nothing happening during the summer days of the early mid-autumn. Not as awesome as that fully engraved one, but for some reason, the good engravers are resting in jail, even though they were never jailed and are dying. Hooray, dwarven justice systems. Mariguana posted, my tomb is the cheapest of all of them, isn't it? I bet I died first, too. Poor Mariguana. But with the forum banter aside, Sankis is excited and celebrating that their turn is almost over. Hooray! Winter has finally arrived, and the final stretch before my term is over. It starts off well enough. A metalsmith starves to death. I assume he was jailed for disobeying orders, and none of the lazy-ass dwarves fed him. I'm starting to feel like this is intentional. Our coin vault is finally finished, and the fortress's supply of coins is protected by the first door of pure steel, followed by one of pure platinum. And the late Tourette Doge's corpse is finally placed in his tomb. Since nothing is happening, I decide to set some traps in various areas. I catch a spider. Hooray! I catch spiders personally by simply putting my houseplants outside for a couple hours and then bringing them inside. I don't know why they're so proud of catching this spider, but I guess we shall continue. Remember when I said shit was getting boring? I take that back. I have no idea what the fuck just happened. I was cleaning up outside a bit and mining out useless areas, and by gods! Now, for those of you who can't tell what's happening here, there is water everywhere. Immediately, we lose the miner who undug it, writes Sankis. The rest of those stranded outside are safe for now. I get the idea to possibly save the fortress if I release the lava I have trapped up. It will evaporate the water on contact, with nothing to lose. I do it, and the lava is released and hits the water. It continues spreading and steaming up. Sadly, the dwarves trapped outside are unable to flee, and they either die horrible deaths due to scalding or due to being burned alive in the lava. And Sankis has the horrible desire to highlight a dog. Poor dog, they write. You can see the mayor and manager being incapable of moving, as hammerers and the war dog are scalded to death. After a while, it clears up. All of the goods outside of the fortress are burnt, but they can't be recovered. The fortress is saved, but at terrible cost. Many dwarves have been found dead, scalded to death, including an entire squad. And the once lush countryside outside of Boatmurdered has become a vast gray wasteland of charcoal and char and evaporated blood. After everything settles down, I decide to engrave some of the things in my future tomb. Clearly, I have suffered some sort of trauma, because Sankis's dwarf created a engraving called the Old Stick of Balls, an image of a dog. The dog is burning. And of course, an image called the Silvery Crystalline Dumpling, a masterfully designed image of a dwarf. The dwarf is screaming. But after that, things begin settling down, and finally became normal again, as winter starts to come close. A dwarf becomes possessed, and he claims a crafts dwarf shop, and begins production on an artifact. As winter ends, I am now retiring after only a year. Hopefully the next ruler is up to the task of rebuilding the outside, and refilling the channels. Luckily, I finished my tomb before my reign ended. I now retire. Outside of character, Sankis apologizes for taking so long, and Itenza posts in the thread, "You maniac, you blew it up! Did you solve the elephant problem at least?" And Sankis responds with this glorious image of lava, water, steam, and melting elephants in the middle, followed by an image of the wastelands and the dead smears that were once elephants. "I don't know, you tell me," writes Sankis. "At least the water, flooding lava, and steaming gives the next ruler an excuse to make the fortress's indoor moat into a lava moat."
Hey, Omalal, what's up with that dwarf over there?
Oh, yeah, him? Apparently he was attacked by an elephant.
I thought elephants were peaceful.
No, not these ones. Apparently they've got some demonic possession or something going on. We should really ask these guys to set up a safer road. Although last time I mentioned it, I got a cryptic reply. Some kind of final solution involving floodgates and levers. Wait, what's that sound?
I think someone's murdering a kitten.
That can't be.
Oh, Christ, tell me these guys aren't trying to trade us a totem made out of somebody's pet.
With the reign of Fortress Overseer Sankis coming to a close, it was time for our next Overseer to take over the rule of Boatmurdered. And on the Something Awful forums, they go by the handle Unknowing, presumably unknowing what they were in for. It has been 2 hard weeks since Mother evicted me, but I still stand by my decision. It is unfortunate that she does not understand the trials and tribulations of a budding storyteller. Who does she think she is? Telling me I either need to find real work or leave the house. My colleagues and I were not simply playing wizards and warlocks. We were formulating ideas for the world's next great work of literature as a collective. My travels have brought me to the dwarven city of Boatmurdered. My diminutive stature and full beard have led its citizens to accept me as one of their own. How fortuitous. The efficient yet handsome architecture of the city leaves me in awe. The dwarves seem unfamiliar with wizards and warlocks, but tales of my exploits as a traveling war mage have been well received. In light of the recent loss of their esteemed ruler, they wish me to serve as a guiding hand in the development of the city. Naturally, I accepted. And as you said, I would never amount to anything, Mother. By the mid-spring, the construction of the Sanctus Ceramon, the sacred temple of the gods, is well underway, and the dwarves unfortunately fail to recognize the scope of my success in this project. I will soon be the first man to realize the creation of an exact replica of his most famous locations from wizards and warlocks. Nonetheless, the dwarves do appreciate my skill in architecture. The past week has been a great disappointment, since our successes with the constructions. The elven traders who arrived 10 days past left quite livid earlier this afternoon. In traveling to our humble abode, they became quite displeased with the veracity of our lumber industry. Attempts to console them went awry when they took great offense to my offering of fishbone earrings. Alas, I had wished to hear the melodious elf songs of wizards and warlocks fame. And by midsummer, our overseer is getting quite upset. This place is truly becoming a bore. Not a single dwarf among the entire population knows the wonders of wizards and warlocks. All attempts to teach them have been rebuffed with laughter. No one else seems to understand the importance of wizards and warlocks. I have ordered the construction of a bridge across the magma chasm. The area beyond has the perfect ambience to be the site of my further endeavors to bring the wizards and warlocks universe to life. And by midsummer, the dwarves were becoming nervous as the construction progresses further into the mountain. I reassure them that my magic is mighty enough to conquer any creatures that may lurk in the depths. By late summer of 1058, disaster struck. Progress on the Antechamber of Darkness came to a standstill when the inhabitants of the Abyss, drawn by the dismal atmosphere of the structure, came to roost. Before I could reach the site to provide aid, it was already too late for our poor advanced miners. The halls echoed with a cacophony of screams from unspeakable atrocities the dwarves endured before succumbing to the sweet embrace of death. On the positive side, progress on my novel has increased exponentially. The situation has taken a turn for the worse. The demons have begun encroaching upon the central fortress. All attempts to repel the monsters with magic has failed, and never before have I suffered such an unfortunate string of failed attack rolls. The fortress guard has been deployed to fight in my stead, while I rest to renew my supply of magic missiles. I thought, after the defeat of the tentacle monsters, I would be able to relax and recover from the horrible damage my reputation has incurred. Alas, it was not meant to be. A mere 5 days later, a forager returned to the city with alarming news. Goblins, envious of the fame and fortune I had brought to Boatmurdered, were en route, with the intention to lay siege to my city. But no matter. The dwarves continue to go about business as usual, despite the presence of goblins just outside of the fortress. They are confident that goblin intelligence cannot outmatch the defensive power of our dwarven door technology. I, however, am not so sure. I will use protective powers of dice to determine whether or not the goblins can divine a method with which to breach the doors. But, as expected, I was quite correct in my assumptions. I rolled a natural 20 in the goblins' leader's stead, and thus the doors will be breached tonight. There is a 20-minute break between the guard shifts. Shortly before midnight, preparations are almost complete. And after much bloodshed and several days of fighting, the entirety of the goblin forces have been driven from the city or slain. No one knows how the goblins were able to enter the fortress. My leadership abilities have once again been called into question. Once their investigation of the past year's events is completed, I will be called before the tribunal for questioning. And a few weeks later, a decision has been made. The tribunal has somehow come to the conclusion that all blame for the year's tragedies lies with me. However, thanks to the boards of kinship all dwarves share, I will not be executed or exiled. Instead, I have been told that I must earn my meals as a worker, or artisan, or starve. This situation feels oddly familiar, but this time I will endure the indignity of such unfair treatment. My novel is completed, and my rise to literary greatness is at hand. Now only if I could find a publisher. After that lovely piece of dialogue, we get a little bit of outside character forum interaction, where Sankis posts, "Tell me Sankis is still living. Tell me he's still living." And Unknowing responded, "Sankis is still alive and being a big show-offy jerk, as if I'm going to study engraving under him." And clearly, you can see Sankis is doing all right. He keeps engraving masterpieces on the walls, or floors, or wherever. With the brief, albeit enjoyable, reign of Fortress Overseer Unknowing coming to a close, Cross Quantum takes the fortress of Boatmurdered. And their journal entries begin on the 22nd of Obsidian, 1058. Well, diary, it happened again. The RA found the ratweed stashed in my dorm room during the winter break festivities. The cretin. I mean, I know beards are the norm in our society, but could you at least wash it once in a while? He muttered something about 3 strikes or straights or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about bowling or poker. On the plus side, I found some wonderful imported elven curtains that perfectly complement the lilac accents I painted on the windowsill. They're simply to die for. But I guess I would shortly find out what he meant by those strikes or straights, because just a few days later the RA came back and said I was going to be expelled from the university. This is so unfair. I'm going down to the dean's office at once. There's no way someone of my caliber would be expelled for something so trifling as this. But the dean said that there was nothing he could do. Let me tell you, I gave him a piece of my mind. I reminded him who it was that had the idea for the performance of The Fountain Has School Water Turned into Pudding Topped with Human and Dwarven and Elven Feces in the Shapes of Angels. That got so much press last year. About how much publicity the University of Glazed Lions got for that, and how it pushed off those Philistine Ingrid donors. You know the ones who might have a lot of money, but no taste. You know. I think refreshing his memory worked because he smiled at me and said that he did remember something about a job opening at one of the newer settlements, and he said that I'd be perfect for it. That I deserved it. I found a note in my mailbox this morning from the dean. Apparently, this place is a town called Boatmurdered. God, I hate how all these suburban developers give their stupid little towns such boring faux pastoral names. Anyway, apparently the place is in some need of sprucing up. Something about how all the local interior decorators are fixated on elephants for some reason, and they need some new blood to come in and reinvigorate their living spaces. I'm so excited. My first real-world job, and I'm in charge of a whole town's interior design needs. I bought tickets for the next caravan right away, and we leave in an hour, if all goes well. I'll arrive by the 1st. And just a few days later, I'm here, diary. I've taken a survey of the fortress's state. Let me tell you, it's pitiful. We all know our people like to engrave historical events, so I've decided to add a few charcoal rubbings of some typical engravings here. Apparently the two most significant historical events here in Boatmurdered are elephants and cheese. Take a close look at the cheese ones, actually. They aren't even carvings of cheese, but renditions of some other image of a cheese. Intrigued, I investigated the art history of the settlement further. I discovered this artifact, which I can only presume was an inspiration for all of the imitations. And as you can see, it includes an image of cheese in clear glass. Having viewed it for myself, I must agree that this image of cheese speaks to the dwarven spirit, and it will be a cultural treasure for generations to come. Anyway, I have a few ideas already for adding some pizzazz to this dreary settlement. For starters, this place needs some more openness, so I've placed an order for windows to be made and installed to improve the ambience. I've gotten the ball rolling on some other projects as well, but you'll just have to wait and see about those. Apparently, this job comes with some sort of clerical duties or something. I don't know. When I got here, the people kept asking me questions about farming and fighting demons and stuff. Hello, do I look like I know anything about that? A little bit of time has passed, and Overseer Cross Quantum is ecstatic. A lone elf has arrived. I'm so excited. It's my first time meeting a real elf. And it's a noble to boot. Sometimes I feel out of place as a dwarf with my barely there facial hair and high-pitched voice. I should have been born an elf. Their culture is so superior to ours. That reminds me, I should see if I can order an elven lunchbox from the next caravan, as long as it's not pink. Shortly after him, a group of monkeys showed up. The leader of the local militia, the only able-bodied survivor of some kind of fight with demons or something, explained to me how mandrels are deceptively fierce for their size, and asked for permission to raise a militia. Gosh, these military guys seem like they're always looking for some approval from an authority figure. Anyway, I told him to do whatever, so he picked 4 peasants to help him out. Now, I need to step in here with an editor's note. Every now and again, when you're going through these old posts on the Something Awful forums or any other forum that was very active at the time, sometimes words that were much more acceptably used on the internet are things that come up in discussion. So I'm going to read this as best I can, but you're going to have to bear with me here. Goblin PDF files have infiltrated our fortress. Fortunately, the captain of the guard was able to stop the kidnapper's partner. I sent the parents of the kidnapped and presumed and probably deceased child a sympathy card and a hand-assembled bouquet of flowers. Also, the bookkeeper went mad, and he now sits by the side of the main entrance hallway, panhandling, screaming demands at passerbys. for exactly 5 platinum and 5 gold coins. The bookkeeper's body was found on the shores of the Cave River today. It's been only a week. And just a day later, the bookkeeper's body was found on the shores of the Cave River today, apparently a suicide. Although the captain of the guard suspects foul play, it seems the bookkeeper had made a lot of enemies when he arrived, and did away with the subsidized housing. Diary, I'm starting to get a little worried for my safety. I shall confer with the elven noble as to what colors are most calming. When I went to the elven noble's quarters, all I found was a note that he was unhappy with his stay here and left early. I think I'll go to my quarters where I'm going to burn a sage and citrus-scented candle and eat some cookie dough and weep myself to sleep. Spring has ended. Uneventfully, in fact. I'm starting to get downright bored. But I'm sure that boredom wouldn't last for long because a vile force of darkness has arrived. What do I do? I've never even seen a goblin, much less get sieged by them. The job description didn't say anything about sieges. This is totally unacceptable. The leader of the militia called me a goddamn sissy, and he said that he'd be right back. He's probably going to give a rousing speech to his men, sweaty and armored and tense, before making a valiant last stand. It's all so dramatic. If I must die, at least it's in a way that's so... It's getting warm in here. Diary, it was terrible. That militia leader just killed them. He burned them all to a crisp, without even trying to make peace. Not only that, but he burned up all of the grass and woodland creatures outside too. No wonder the elves hate us so much. We're so violent and destructive to our environment. I painted a mural on the wall by the barracks. No blood for lava. In protest. After the goblin siege, life returned to the same old. Some of the soldiers gave me dirty looks, and maybe spit on me once or twice. It's okay, though, because my first project came to completion. It is my hope that it will inspire contemplation and raise the collective consciousness of our community to a higher level. It seems that the rest of the townsfolk are using the new statuary mainly to throw parties involving monkeys and horses. Bunch of cretins. But unfortunately, our poor overseer, Cross Quantum, would not get the peace that they wanted, because on the 16th of Limestone, another vile force of darkness arrived. Diary, I'm becoming so dismayed. Work on the projects was already falling behind schedule when this happened again. A group of them caught one of our dwarves outside. It seemed to me they were walking up to discuss options for peaceful coexistence, but then they just stabbed him in the face instead. I was so shocked. I turned to say something to the captain, but he just shot me a dirty look and walked out the door. And to the dismay of poor Cross Quantum, the militia commander released the lava flows once more, once again burning the entirety of the surface, which had only just began to turn green once again, turning all of the goblins to molten dust, and the greenery to ash once more. But Cross Quantum has other concerns. The siege delayed the project construction even further. I feel so depressed now. I've been passing the time by hauling rocks in remote parts of the fortress. I know there are more important stone hauling jobs to do, but sometimes a dwarf needs some time to think alone. You know? The rest of fall passed without incident. The farmers brought in the last of the pigtail harvest this year. That was my idea. You can eat, drink, or wear organically grown pigtails. And on the 9th of Moonstone, there was a frogman ambush. The soldiers and traps took care of them pretty quickly. I'm starting to think that we may have to invest in some better sanitation, though. What with all of the blood and all in the river. Diary, I'm starting to hate it here. It seems that every other day there's some new invading force of some kind. There's blood all over the main hallway now, and where does it even keep coming from? The butterflies that stink with the stench of 1,000 corpses? And the screams of the possessed dwarves echo through the halls. I hope my paycheck gets here soon. I'm feeling myself grow callous here. I didn't even look up when my assistant told me that a kobold raiding force showed up on the outskirts of our settlement. Sadly, I was even less impressed when they immediately left. Come on, guys. We have such a nice settlement. Why didn't you stick around? Was it the Ashen Wasteland or the Bloodstained Gates? Was it the screams of the madmen and the stench of death? We've got awful nice engravings of some fucking cheese here. Come the fuck on. Well, diary, I've had enough of it here. I feel like a failure. The project sits almost completed, but not quite. It feels like when I wouldn't quite have my papers done for one of my old professors. Only the outright fail asshole kind of professor. And not the, oh, you lose a letter grade sort. This place is dirty and foul, and not at all like the loving utopia I hoped to craft. I shall leave instructions to whoever comes after me on the functioning of this project. Here is a crude sketch of it. I shall see if those frogmen corpses are still around here. I've heard that licking their skin can be very enlightening. I hope it's strong enough to make me forget all that's happened here. And thus ends the diary entries of poor Cross Quantum. And we move on to the next overseer of Fortress Boatmurdered. The next Fortress Overseer of Boatmurdered is Major Failure, and they start off their post by asking if they can bring back a character. Ral, StarkRavingMad Swearington, is the character they would like to bring back, but this time referred to as Ral Major Failure Swearington, and former ruler of Boatmurdered. So the cocksuckers sent me back to fucking Boatmurdered. All the fucking gold under the hill, and a superior cougar skin waistcoat in exchange for the use of my fucking extraordinary talents to clean this damn place up in 1 year. Not that I have a damn choice. Every fortress east of here is suffocated in the bean-counting bureaucracy of Peckerwood, the United Strongholds Alliance. And only shitholes like Boatmurdered have any autonomy left for business dwarves like me to prosper in. The fucking smell of this place hits me before I even get to the river. The entire place is buried in a foul, godless cunt of a stench, lurking and cloying in the great bastard hills of the smoke above the mangled cinders of what used to be the Elephant Fields. It starts to rain as I trudge across the bridge, washing the stinking smoke into my clothes, pinging off all of the drifts of rusty goblin armor. Oh, and the fucking goblins. I have to kick a fucking 6-pack of dirt-worshipping heathens out of my way just to get through the gate. Inside is the most tragic disgrace I have ever had the fucking displeasure to see. Corpses, vomit, boulders, mud, and useless goddamn objects, strewn 7 deep over every available fucking surface. A skeleton crew of ragged, beat-up dwarves stumbling about on useless shit-lugging errands for a bunch of delirious opium-fucked nobles, living in what they assure me is the lap of fucking luxury. But which, to any sane dwarf, is clearly some festering hybrid of a slaughterhouse and an antiques fair. Barely have I been inside for a fucking minute when some cocksucker rushes over and thrusts upon me a pile of useless documentation about the mechanisms, doomsday weapons, and secret elephant projects, cunt-wiping machines, and gods know what else, scattered around this cat's ass of a fortress. It takes me all of 8 seconds to realize I do not have the time to acquire the fucking college degree I would need to decipher the plumbing and fucking entertainment systems of this rickety death trap, so the documents go straight down the cave river. Wasting no time, I call a meeting with the cocksucking nobles and inform them that their demon-fucked disaster area of a fortress is all theirs. They can do what they like with their shitty little empire. I am taking a couple dozen able-bodied dwarves who survived the demons and the sieges and starting a new site that might have a fucking hope of surviving another year. So I point to the south and tell the cocksuckers to start digging. This was settled as a damn mining camp, I say. And as of this fucking moment, you now fall into two categories. Miners and the cocksuckers who keep the miners alive. No fucking jewelers, no fucking mechanics, no fucking crafts dwarves. Do I have to make myself understood? I'm going to sit down at that rusty piece of shit magma forge and crank out copper picks. And you can use them to get some fucking mining done so we have the space to start a new town. I'm barely done making the last batch of picks when those cocksucking hooplehead elves show up, no doubt weeping their fucking balls off about the elephant chunks being kicked around by the children in a lake of blood outside of the trade depot. Without even bothering to see what they have, I have 3 of my guys rob the piss out of them. The haul was mostly useless shit, but at least we swiped some of those bloated tubers. My personal supply of swamp whiskey. Thank Armok for that. The return of Raoul Swearington, by major failure, goes quiet. We don't hear from them for quite some time. And on the Something Awful forums, the thread actually slowed down to a point where it basically vanished. Sometime later, some of the original collaborators and some familiar faces got back together, and the one who started that thread was Mystic Mongol, who briefly writes, "Sadly, the first thread petered out and died because the waiting line got too long. And by the time people in the middle of the line got to play, their situation had changed and they suddenly didn't have quite as much time to play as they thought they did." This is honestly a pretty common thing to happen in Fortress succession forts to this day. After a couple of turns, people start to forget, or they just don't have as much free time as they did a month or 2 before. And with that, a new thread was created, and our fortress continues with a list of familiar faces, as well as some new characters. "Your Highness," writes Mystic Mogul, "your humble servant, Gigin Limul, Mystic Mogul, Flyergold, begs your patience with a report on the occurrences in your empire. The city fortress of Kogansan, more vulgarly known as Boatmurdered, has been the source of constant trouble to the empire. While riches found deep within the mountain are essential if we wish the nation of Camillebil, the Oaken Tomes, to prosper and crush our foes, Boatmurdered has a reputation for burning through leadership at an appalling rate. And while you had seen fit to send many immigrants, and even some of the true nobility in late 1059, communication from the fortress ceased entirely. Of particular note was the sudden cessation of communication from the Baron Melbil Tethaludib and his consort. He was convinced his wife knew nothing about. Military command decided to send someone disciplined this time, to see what was the causing of Boatmurdered's many problems. As all the prior leaders of Boatmurdered had failed to clean out the mountain, I carefully examined their records to find out what they had done with all of their time. All had come to the fortress and admired the arts and crafts, or legendary artifacts, made by the renowned mad dwarves of that forsaken tomb. So I decided to start my rule through economic audit. Food and supplies were good for a fortress of this size, although the low population count worried me. Earlier reports had implied that at least 100 dwarves had lived in Boatmurdered. Indeed, there were many vacant bedrooms in the projects near the entrance, most of which were not properly licensed and zoned for dwarven inhabitants. I corrected this oversight immediately. Legal records have shown a depressing amount of crime occurring in Boatmurdered, including one depraved dwarf who apparently amused himself by crippling defenseless animals. The cat's injuries to the spine, tail, and lungs are too horrible to depict, but I feel it appropriate to attach an image of the dog's plight. And let us never forget what happens when lawlessness reigns free. These deviants need to be brought to heel. Also worth noting is the former ruler of Boatmurdered was on record for repeatedly denying orders of his superiors. A poor example to set. The economic status was similarly depressing. Demand far outstripped supply on several key metals. Unforgivable in a supposed mining fortress, almost all the cloth was imported. The Head Masons Guild had jacked prices up on parts and skirts in some strange tops-only clothing policy I don't wish to dwell on. And all leather prices were set low by the bookkeeper, except for hippopotamus, which was twice the price of other leathers. No one seemed to remember who decided on that. I decided a quick interview of the bookkeeper would be prudent. And it turns out, not only had the bookkeeper died, attacked, they claim in the records, but so had two of the former rulers, including Tourette Doge, the one wanted for questioning, and apparently the founder of the fortress. He died shortly after defying the will of the nobility. Many of the nobility had died some time after. The exact dates were unavailable, with no dwarf able to give a good reason why. The Baron and his associate were both dead too, doubtless victims of foul play. How else could two such important dwarves, too busy to expose themselves to danger and surrounded by the royal guard, both die? The army was also a pitiful joke. A few weak soldiers playing royal guard for non-existent royalty. I immediately returned them to active duty, but the numbers in Boatmurdered were too small to replenish the army entirely. A priority had to be made on finding someone to make an example of, and getting the fortress back to something resembling civilization. All this murder and animal cruelty couldn't go on. It seemed tradition to admire the local art, so I dropped by one of the engraved halls. One wall had these 6 images depicted in a row. I was so sickened that I didn't bother to go to the other halls. Sankis was the artist, and apparently one of the previous rulers of Boatmurdered. To string up a deviant like him, who had once run the place, would send a strong message to all the other dwarves. Finally, I found a way to make the fortress sit up and listen. And after inspecting the coins, Mystic is not impressed. I don't know who made the money, but there's certainly something wrong with them. Another priority for my stay will be replacing the money with coins that better reflect our glory. But it seems that not all is horrible in this place for Mystic Mongol, because they're quite happy with their room. While my room was surprisingly nice, I suspect they're trying to bribe me. Many of the nobles are dissatisfied with their accommodations. While they languish without even a single platinum-encrusted dining room to their name, the corrupt dwarf Sankis has built himself a royal tomb, complete with multiple platinum statues. I will have to look into having them melted down and used to make weapon racks for the ruling class, if he stops carving images of dwarves being eaten by elephants. However, I may let him keep his little statuary. Your humble servant, Gigin Lemuel. And Sankis is displeased with Mystic messing around with their tomb. You best not touch my tomb, you jerk, they write. But Mystic Mogul responds, oh, don't you tell me what to do. I'm the law in this pit in the ground. Take this criminal dog, writes Mystic, while highlighting Unknowing, the 8th Circle War Mage, so-called. He thought no one would notice that he had no jobs assigned. Fortunately, before he managed to starve himself to death, I told him at crossbow point that he was going to start work taming the fortress's hefty supply of elephants. When that was done, he was to scour the fortress for burnt bits of dwarf left over from the battles with demons many years ago. The tame elephants should help protect the dwarves from any sudden attacks that may occur. Because I was quite unhappy to find the 3 royal rooms were, in fact, 1 room. I was further angered to find out my bedroom and dining room and study was shared with all of the other house representatives. The mayor, the hammerer, and almost all of the nobles were crammed into a single room. Confusingly, they didn't seem to mind or notice. My initial rage died down. I assigned the remaining homeless nobles to the room. No reason they couldn't crash on my dolomite couch. Still, I decided to spend some time making individual housing for at least a few of them. Speaking of the hammerer, he spent the year in bed, adjusting the prices of goods so he could pretend he still had an effect on the fortress as a whole. He had apparently taken a goblin crossbow bolt to the foot, and none of the dwarves had bothered to remove it. My prayers go out to him. Should he recover, he'll be able to maintain his role as hammerer. A hammerer, of course, deals out beatings to criminals, one of the harshest practices of dwarven law. The result is almost always a skull split open like a ripe melon, as there are 3 criminals walking free in desperate need of a hammer to the face, including a former commander, Magor Grundel. His speedy recovery would set an excellent example to all dwarves who were considering crime, but valued having a skull. And you thought that we'd forgotten about you, didn't you, Mr. Grundel? I go looking for wood, and all I find is yet more mockery from the criminal mastermind. Apparently all of the lumberjacks and carpenters are dead. While I agree, wood represents a dangerous weakening of the dwarven society, Boatmurdered is in serious need of some bins, and metal ones are difficult to make. Still, none of the workers can be spared. We have precious few haulers as is, so the fort goes without for a while. I can hear Sankis' laughter echoing after me wherever I go. Because as you can see, I had grown tired of his foul acts and had him arrested on some trumped-up charge or other. After 2 weeks next to a rotting kobold corpse by a silk rope, that miserable engraver learned some respect. When, and if he ever stops flinching when I walk past, I'm going to grab the steel hammer and dole out a little justice of my own. And as time passes on, the annual traditions occur, and this time it is trading with the elves. I don't understand people who don't like elves. They don't like fancy gifts, made from bone or leather or wood. They only like trade goods of stone, or better yet, steel or metal. They're considerably more hardcore than the majority of the dwarves in Boatmurdered, myself and the hammerer excluded, of course. And their gifts of cloth did much to alleviate the pants shortage that we had been suffering from. I gave them a very favorable trade conditions and sent them on their way. And Mystic was proud of themselves because they decided it was time to maybe try and bring up the mood a little bit. I held a theme party in the jail. The theme was clean up your act before I hurl you into the chasm. Joviality was forced, as it should be. During the party, one of the dwarves approached me and said that he wanted shells, 2 kinds of ore, 3 kinds of gem, 1 kind of cut gem, and a rock, and some kind of wood. I told him I wanted to not listen to some simpering prima donna bitch about his penacing mittens. Guess who got their way? And the answer was clear because shortly after, Tekid went insane as he burned up in magma. And with summer arriving, it was time to trade with the humans. At least one of my predecessors had his head on straight. The humans arrived with the previous year's order of roughly 300 units of booze. Another theme party was held in the jail. Once again, I gave them a very favorable trading conditions and told them to bring more of the same next year, along with maybe some more animals. And against all odds and the indifference of Mystic, one dwarf did manage to finish an artifact. Another dwarf actually completed his project and gained a legendary skill in engraving. God damn it, we already have 2 legendary grade vandals. We don't need a third sketching pictures of demons laughing at mandrels on the wall. He was immediately put to use hauling. Once winter rolled around, I tried to activate the elephant pump the previous ruler had set up. A series of steel bridges now cross the lava flow at several points, so you should be able to leave it on now. Also, having lava back there keeps all the elephants from using it as a personal playground. So, the rich galena and platinum deposits behind the channel are now within reach. But sadly, once released, the elephant simply left the pump without triggering the floor switches. I have serious doubts as to the ability of a series of 1x1 bridges to block anything. Plus, maybe taming him before releasing the elephant was a bad idea. It caused him to avoid the switches, no doubt. The pump chamber is ready to go. After taking this image, I added an access route to it. So if anyone wishes to tear out the bridges and plate of the elephant pump and start over fresh, they wouldn't even have to shut off the lava. Also, I'd strongly suggest replacing the bridges with larger 3x3 open left modules. Of course, to block the elephant's passage. There's always lava. There's even a consistently active channel not too far away. The year has passed without military note, which is good, because we also lack a military. And without the hammerer recovering. The fortress received no immigrants this year, and had no births, and lost a few dwarves to war injuries or fey moods. However, huge swaths of metals have been mined out, and many metal goods were made, a few encrusted with jewels, and the nobles were satisfied. All of the crafts dwarves were armed and armored, and an engraved superhighway was added that goes almost all the way through the mountain. And overall, Boatmurdered now looks much more attractive to immigrants, which is good, because after all the horrible death, it's going to be hard to get immigrants to come at all. The elephants were peaceful, as all herbivores are. The mandrills would occasionally grab a piece of equipment left to rust by the defeated goblin armies. I suspect the challenge they pose was exaggerated by the previous rulers. When the new ruler arrives, sometime this spring, I shall retire as judicator, acting as the merciful hand of law, and merely throwing random selected dwarves into jail for no good reason. It's a hard job, but I wouldn't trade it for any other in the world. Except for, maybe, Hammerer.
Why are they staring at me like that? I hate it when they stare at me. And what the hell was up with all those charred bones we passed on the way here?
Relax, Juthrer. Unload the carts. Don't look too closely at the walls. Let's just get paid and get the hell out of here.
The walls? Why shouldn't... Oh, Armok, Christ, what is that?
God damn it, I told you not to. Oh god. Oh shit. Look at that fucking dog. What the hell happened here? Let's get the fuck out of here. And tell them that their road's too narrow or something. Shit, Jothro, just don't touch that lever. And that ends the reign of Mystic Mongol on the fortress of Boatmurdered. Sankis the Insane, the dwarf who had been scribbling inscrutable drawings all over the walls of Boatmurdered for the past 2 years, had once again regained control of Boatmurdered. It is autumn and the 4th year since the arrival of Emperor Sankis, and known by peasants as the year 1061. The beginning of autumn is fairly uneventful. I begin mining out a channel from the Cave River up to our inner moat. Construction goes as planned, and is working by the end of autumn. However, there was a point where things did start to happen. Yay. First, some moron decides to kill himself by starving. And the elves decide to once again show up to trade, as it is early spring. And a few kobolds also attempted to steal our things. They didn't get very far, as soon after, a vile force of darkness arrived, and what appears to be 3 squads pour in from the west. 1 in the northwest, and 2 in the southwest. They immediately begin moving southeast towards the fortress, and they quickly executed the fleeing kobolds. With the kobolds dead, they moved swiftly towards the fortress. Luckily for us, and unluckily for them, I managed to lock all of the entrances and get my dwarves inside before they are able to take the doors, Emperor Sankis, being as great as he is, immediately options for the fiery death option. And as previous rulers of Boatmurdered once said, Operation Fuck the World is underway. Magma out. And as lava enters the jungles, ashes begin to burn once more. And it slowly makes its way towards the invaders. Hey, Zer, you read Stinking Dwarf Rune. What this paper say?
Out to eat lunch. Out to lunch. They out to lunch.
Yeah, I guess we wait here. Darn. Shit-o timing. What's that smell?
Smell like burning elf tree home. Shut up, sir. We try to think.
But him.
What that?
Look, I think it the fiery blood of the mountains.
Oh, shit.
And as the lava gets close, the goblins begin to burn and melt. Burnt goblin can be smelt throughout the fortress, and probably the entire region. Needless to say, the goblins are gone. In spirit, anyway. Things proceed as normal for a few weeks, and then later, a new baddie shows up. And this new creature, standing on the doorstep of Boatmurdered, is a bronze colossus named Locum Romantic Day. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to post this, and hopefully it will explain how the colossus died, writes Sankis in his diary. and presumably the Colossus melted, as did the goblins, and many other creatures before them. And sometime after the assault, we get a very small batch of immigrants, mostly fucking nobles. Nothing useful. We could have used a bunch of fucking peasants, at least. Lots of hauling needs to be done, and everyone knows that the nobles hate hauling. And by the close of autumn, writes Sankis, I, Emperor Sankis, have begun to revenge on my arch-nemesis, Judicator Mystic Mongol. First, to tease my prey, I starve and dehydrate him in his newly assigned room. And while he is busy, trapped in his room, I set up a lever and attach it to an elephant cage. I unlock the door while he walks through the room. The lever is pulled and the elephant is released. Mystic Mongol, being the fool that he is, attempts to wrestle with the elephant. And amazingly, he is not instantly killed. He merely sustains a broken leg. He hobbles after the now fleeing elephant. However, the elephant soon meets its end in our traps. Now he lies useless in his room. I did not wish to kill him, as that would merely lead to a replacement. He will suffer in his room until his own kind forget about him, where he will slowly starve to death. Alone. Pleased with their work, Sankis retires for the day, leaving the thread incomplete, promising to finish it in a future post. Mystic Mogul posts below the thread, Yo man, what? I didn't actively hurt you. You committed a crime. And you feel the need to sick an elephant on me? After stripping me of my weapons? That's uncool, dude. And Sankis responds, well, to be honest, I wouldn't have done it if you weren't a noble, since they're easily replaced, and the law ones are even more annoying when they jail my metalsmiths or whatever. I also didn't strip you of your weapons. For some reason, you weren't wielding any anyway. I was expecting you to actually kick the elephant's ass, since you were very well armored. In steel plate, I believe. I'm not touching you anymore, though, so don't worry. I'm just going to move your bed back to a makeshift hospital so that the dwarves have no reason to not feed you. I also made you a tomb. On the bright side, you did gain like 4 levels of wrestling. And Mystic responds with, don't worry about it too much. After my initial fury, I realized it was indeed pretty amusing. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. Summer in Boatmurdered starts out fairly slow. There is no real action until midsummer or so when the human caravan arrives. I tired of the humans' slow pace and decided to seize a good portion of their supplies, which of course made them leave quite swiftly. Another dwarf goes fey and begins working on some stupid creation in a strange mood. But I was being productive in the meantime, and assigned some woodcutters and began wood production once more. And thankfully, the Feymood dwarf manages to get all of his supplies, and he makes a masterpiece item. It's a gem coffin. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. On the item is an image of a dwarf and an elephant, of course, and the elephant is striking down the dwarf, naturally. And the glorious Emperor Sankis decided to further strengthen the fortress from invasion, notably from the trolls who seek to break down the doors. I have refilled the interior moat, and this moat may serve as a defense if the doors break. All one must do is pull the lever in a nearby room. Summer was dull, and it ended as quickly as it came. I feel a tinge of guilt for harming my fellow dwarf Mystic Mongol, and crippling him, so I create him a semi-fancy tomb too. And to my surprise, out of nowhere a dwarf drowns. There was also a mysterious vomiting dwarf outside. Strange. Meanwhile, these fucking kobolds just don't quit. And the dwarven caravan and trade minister arrives. I speak to them, and nothing is really gained. They clearly just don't appreciate my artwork. Not that it matters, because once again the goblins came as well, and they just don't quit. And it seems that the Emperor Sankis' inexperience with mining is beginning to show, because damnation, he screams. A portion of the cave falls, and the lava release is now blocked. I shall send a miner to go clear it out, he writes. Unfortunately, he burns his feet almost off, and falls onto the floor nearby. He continues to burn until he dies of blood loss, and continues to smoke until he rots away. And winter of the year 1061 is approaching, and Boatmurdered is low on food, so the glorious Emperor Sankis set many of the animals up for slaughter. And concerned about sanitary issues for some reason, it appears that Sankis has found the mysterious vomiter. I don't know what I should do with him, he writes. Miasma covers the entrance of the fortress, and Sankis writes, "Good thing my citizens are all happy enough that it doesn't bother them much." And the clouds of purple mist continue to rise, because out of seemingly nowhere, Mystic Mongol, the adjudicator of Boatmurdered, throws himself into the water and drowns. Do you think it was the miasma? And his remains are placed in his tomb, where they are defended by some traps. Sankis is upset with the lack of soldiers and begins to rebuild the military, slowly. It would take some time. But a few genuine soldiers were beginning to emerge from the recruits. But as much of an absolute emperor and dictator as Sankis is, he also believes in helping out the peasants. And writes, "I also begin the construction of cheap, affordable housing for the poor dwarves. I do not agree with this, as I feel those too weak to earn money should not be living. But my advisors assure me it's a good thing." And the fortress runs out of food once more, and there is slight panic. It is later rectified by slaughtering many elephants. "In my year of rule, I have accomplished many things. Much of the fortress is now carved out and smoothed. I have begun the foundation for a newer, stronger military. No longer will the goblin menace threaten us. I have ramped up food production, and because of it, I have begun cutting down on the huge animal population. And I've restarted wood production, among other things." And Mystic would like to get a few words in, from the afterlife, of course, in reference to them being found mysteriously dead. Just like the bookkeeper after making someone's leather supplies super valuable. Mysteriously died in an attack. Just like the unpopular baron stepped on a rusty nail, and just as the tax collector was found in his bed mysteriously crushed to death by elephants. Never mind that there are several dwarves we've seen at the scene next to the adjudicator's rickety bridge, yet all claimed no one was within 30 feet of him. At the time of the incident, never mind that, this happened days after his brand new tomb was completed, I'm not sure Boatmurdered authorities would declare this case closed in less than a day and bung off to drink liquor and eat the fortress's dwindling elephant supplies. To whoever the next mayor winds up being, I suggest building a large farming cave and making lots of farmers. The fortress is having some serious food issues. A plant gatherer or 4 to collect new seeds might not go amiss either. We might get lucky and get some rock bushes. I also humbly request the next captain of the guard be renamed to Mystic Mongol and be given the job of zombie. There's no better way to take post-mortem revenge than tying people to silk ropes for a month or two." And thus ends the second reign of the mad emperor Sankis, to be replaced by Dr. Zero on the Something Awful forums, the next goon in the list of good overseers of the fortress Boatmurdered.
I must have a proper surface to work on.
No, seriously, what the fuck? Out of the 6 dwarves we've seen so far, 2 are missing limbs, and 1's moping around naked.
I must have a proper surface to work on.
There's another one sprinting from one end of the depot to the other while carrying an engraved door.
I must have a proper surface to work on.
One's standing in a shop just screaming.
I
Yeah.
must have a proper surface
And only the last one seems to be
to work on.
at all normal. What the fuck have you gotten us into?
I must have a proper surface to work on.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Dr. Zero becomes the expedition leader and overseer of the Fortress of Boatmurdered. Well, I've finally arrived on the 1st of Granite, an appropriate time to begin. I swear I'll never utter the phrase, "Ha! I can run a fortress better than those bumpkins," within earshot of the Dwarven Realm Expansion Minister again so long as I live. I've clambered to the top of the hill just west of the infamous Boatmurdered, as the sun rose over the mountain peaks within which it slept. My first thoughts were that of elation. The majestic purple peaks covered it with a noble cap of snow, as streamers of wind-blown snow trailed off like a woman waving her scarf at a departing lover. Then, as I looked down excitedly, my mood turned to dismay. The winter snows had receded already down there, and the scene was... it was horrendous. The earth The trees and the very face of the mountain was so scorched and burnt, feeble plants poked through the ash and soot in piles of whatever that was. I moved off of the paved road to investigate. Piles and piles of armor and weapons lying around as if their diminutive owners crumbled to ash. Dogs and cats picked through the debris, hunting small vermin. I turned to look back. Perhaps, I thought, I could make the journey back to Camilleville before. No, it was too late. I was being hailed by a dwarf in rags and tatters. The dwarf hailing me was Olin, the broker, his once noble pigtail clothes hanging in scraps from his limbs, standing in pools of dried vomit, and casually kicked at what looked like a half-digested core of a plump helmet. He greeted me with a sense of urgency. Apparently there had been an accident, and yes, he put his fingers in the air and drew those quotes. He informed me that the accident was one of the former rulers was dead, and now the most recent regent had simply walked off the job the day before and began happily carving. They were without anyone to lead them. I asked for a tour that became more and more disturbing as time went on. He explained the history, the sieges, the elephants, the demons. And I wondered again, not for the last time, if I could escape away into the night. Then it happened. A miner ran up to me, surrounded by cats. "Oh, Sura, you must help," she cried. "Sankis has ordered them butchered." Calm down, ma'am," I said, trying to not eye her breasts that were practically hanging out of her tattered clothes. "The cats! Oh God, they'll kill all of them," she cried, and ran off. To make a long story short, I reviewed the last orders of the Emperor, Sankis, and saw that several cats had been listed in the To Butcher book. It seemed a simple mistake, as there was no record of a cat meat being stockpiled, and the cat's entries in the ledger appeared between cattle and horses. I struck them from the record and proceeded to review the rest of the fortress. It seems that Mystic Mongol had met an untimely end, after flinging himself into the river. I could see why, after I had looked around some more, this fortress was a wreck. There was also murmurs of Sankis working on some kind of shoving automation, which I dismissed as stories brought on by the lack of drink. Well, there is indeed a lot of work to do here, which I should get to. The first order of business is to get a farm up and running. It seems the only food stores are a bunch of cow and horse meat that hasn't been cooked yet, and unprocessed fat. I've never been one for sashimi, so that will need to change. Between having some people forage for spring berries and plants and getting the farms up and running again, I feel my associate's degree in subterranean food services will not go to waste. The one troubling thing, though, is that nobody seems to know exactly where the lever for the farm's floodgates is. You do have one, right? I mean, I see the floodgates right over there. Olin nodded enthusiastically and said, "Oh, yes, I think so," and began to scurry off without telling me. He stopped and turned and said, "Oh, speaking of levers, in case of emergency, there are some double-keyed dwarven doomsday levers off to the north." "What kind of emergencies?" I asked. "Oh, sieges, goblins, elephants. Well, sieges, goblins, and elephants mostly. But the elephants. Oh, gods, the elephants. See, sometimes we catch them." He lowered his voice into a conspiratorial tone. "You can hear them in the night. Trumpeting. The trumpeting!" And oh, did I find the elephants. At least 5 of them in cages. Looking at me. Murderously. Anyways, this should be interesting. Did you know that Boatmurdered boasts the youngest legendary stone carver in the whole civilization? And, of course, some nobles, with some rather strange recreational tastes. And just to reinforce the insanity of the Emperor Sankis, I want to leave you with some examples of what he has engraved. I leave it up to you to examine his work and the titles to decide on what may have happened to Mystic Mongol, my predecessor. I think maybe for my safety, I need to increase the Royal Guard. 1062. Spring. Well, after a night's sleep, not a good one, mind you. Olin was right, you can hear those damned elephants all over the fortress. I was ready to take on the full responsibilities of the job. I found out that the cat lady's name is Kib after looking through the records, and I find that she's no fewer than 20 cats. That's 8% of the animals in the fortress, and 30% of the cats. I really don't know what to say about that, but I've ordered another 20 bags of sand to be collected. I don't want those things shitting all over the place. Also, looking over the records, I see that nobles comprise 31% of the dwarves. In this place, that seems like a lot of dwarves have died to various invasions, attacks, disasters, and accidents. I count 33 coffins, but I don't think that they are all full. There are also 4 corpses listed in the fortress assets. I don't want to, but I think I should look into that eventually and ensure they aren't dwarven. Let it be known that there is currently one dwarf incarcerated in prison, one Erith Euristexal, a recruit, for violation of a production order. I don't recall a lot of my tavern production management systems in class, but I'm pretty sure that the military wasn't expected to produce anything but dead bodies. I was going to pardon her, but she's only 3 days left, and she seems content anyway. I guess I shouldn't seem too easy on crime, or whatever it is she did to piss someone off. Notes to self. Get the farms working. Talk to some of these nobles outside my door complaining about not having their needs met, and get some clothes on these people. First thing, as I come out of the door, the metalsmiths are complaining that they have orders for pig iron and no limestone. They are quite annoyed by it. I assured them that I'd get someone to cut some limes right away, if they keep the pigs restrained. It seemed to quiet them down, but they walked away with some strange looks on their faces. They probably aren't used to someone with such responsiveness. In looking for the lever to the farm, I found something that might be it nearby. It might also flood the siege workshop, but I'm not exactly sure why that would be a good thing. There are channels, so the fortress should be safe, but in looking for someone to pull the thing, my academia career has left me a little scrawny, and these levers appear to weigh about 200 pounds. I noticed that there are no peasants. Not one. Given the high percentage of nobles, I'm beginning to suspect something is amiss around here. The good news is I'm pretty sure I found the Dwarven Doomsday lever, which is, thankfully, nowhere near the farms. Although I wouldn't put something like that past these people. Well, sure enough, it flooded the siege workshop. Oh well. Might have to build a new lever, in case I find it soon. After some searching, I finally found the lever, and there was a cow standing over it. Anyway, this is great news, because that means that we will have some mud to till. I've also begun to go over the standing work orders to try and rearrange them according to Dwarf's underground rules and productivity. I've also began to go over the standing work orders, and I tried to rearrange them according to Dewaki's underground rules of productivity. I've gotten through the farmers now, and normalized their work queues. I'd like to get some other jobs stable, like getting metalsmiths doing something. And speaking of that, I took a peek at the unused Metalsmithing for Dummies book and found out what pig iron is, and boy is my face red. I'll have to play it off like it was some joke or something when I see the metalsmiths next. Another interesting note is that the records appear to be incorrect. I'll have to explain Thabadul's Law of Inventory Management at the next staff meeting. It seems that we have almost 20 elephants in cages, and man, the way they look at me while I did the hand count is creepy. Things are going just as they taught me in Camilleville Community College. The jobs are normalized, although some of the dwarves have yet to really get their new streamlined roles, but now the only idler is a wounded farmer. I've also begun to order up some more warhounds, as the military presence or lack thereof is a little bit scary. Not that it's necessary in all cases, because this goblin snatcher picked the wrong place to approach the fortress, and got crushed by some elephants. But an elven caravan arrives shortly after, and I can't wait to see our noble neighbors. I've never seen an elf. Perhaps they have brought us some elvish delicacies or wine, and they brought a friend. But first I must take a quick nap before the elves arrive. Hooray, elves! I want to be well rested for them. And out of character, StarkRavingMad re-enters the thread, and writes, I love how Boatmurdered has turned into some sort of horrendous evil eyesore on the continent. I'm picturing groups of hardy dwarven adventurers gearing up to assault the place just based on the barren ash and skeleton-filled landscape in front of it. Also, I love that the place has become so complex and messy that literally no one knows how everything works anymore. The part where there is a lever to flood the siege workshop for no apparent reason really cracked me up. I like when the thread continues on and people reappear just to commentate on what's happening. It's one of my favorite parts of reading these old Let's Plays, but it seems that Dr. Zero has woken back up and is continuing. Just a quick note before I get something to eat. The elven noble at first seemed very polite, but then he turned out to be some kind of jerk. I mean, who does he think he is? Coming in here and telling us that we can't cut down some bedraggled, scorched, leafless trees? Still, 100 trees would be plenty, and we don't really need that much wood. I resisted the urge to order all the trees be clear-cut, and remembered my environmental science cross-cultural sensitivity training, and told him that it sounded reasonable. Moments later, a dwarf came in and said that the merchants were ready, so I excused myself and rushed to the depot. And Dr. Zero is not too thrilled with what the elves have brought to trade. "Oh joy," he writes. "Rope, cloth. At least those 5 berries can be brewed into something good. Well, it's time to talk with this pointy-eared fellow some more over some plump helmet wine. The only one we have. I hope he chokes on it, enjoys it. After a nice meal, the elf noble was a little bit more understanding, if still rude. And finally, we came to an agreement of 146 trees, which should be plenty, as I only planned on using them for beds anyway. We finally bid each other farewell. And good riddance. A little bit of information for those of you who've only played Dwarf Fortress recently. In the days of Boatmurdered, trees only provided a singular log. 1 tree equaled 1 log, and now the numbers are way smaller when the elves get upset with you and tell you that you can only cut down maybe a dozen or 2 dozen trees, depending on where you are, because you get a lot more wood from each individual tree. So it's still a pretty similar amount of logs you would get from the trees, even though the number is significantly higher. But let's continue, because the elves have a final word. Although we do not always see eye to eye, I bid you farewell. May you someday embrace nature as you embrace the rocks and mud. Dr. Zero is unimpressed. Hey, was that a short joke? Still grumbling after the elves, I decided to channel my frustration to good use. I finally sat down with the nobles, who had been, not so patiently, trying to talk to me. I assigned some tables and beds in the nobles' barracks, and made some of them happy. I ordered the excavation of some new tombs, which should shut them up, or satisfy them, finally. Then, after that, I'll have miners start excavating out more ore. We seem to be running a little low on certain things. Tin, bronze, brass specifically, and I've also told the metalsmiths to forget my little joke and start smelting ore. I don't think they bought it, but they are smelting, so whatever. The month of granite rolls on, and things are humming along. I noticed Rimtar wasn't doing the siege operating that I'd ordered her to do. After tracking her down, I found her in jail. Apparently, it's not good to be the only jeweler with 19 nobles yelling for goods made out of blue diamonds and stuff that we don't even have in stock. It's mid-spring, 4th of Slate, 1062, and I'm told that a fired pimp has sprung from a bush. I have no idea what that means. And whatever this fired pimp is, it attacked a cow, and then was caught in a cage trap while going after the elephants. Oh, and I have looked it up in Praetor's Field Guide to Underworld Denizens, and it's a fire imp, not fired pimp. Man, the country accents are so hard to understand. I wonder if I can tame it. Also today, some immigrants arrived, which is excellent. We need more strong backs. And great, alongside of them was a captain of the guard, a count, a countess, consort, a recruit, 2 peasants, a farmer, a mechanic, and a fisher dwarf. That's all we needed. Some more snooty nobles around. Oh, listen to me. I'm beginning to sound like a long-timer. It just gets so tiresome catering to their every whim. Later that month, Id, the Baroness consort, gave birth to a baby girl. Just what we need. More noble larva. Well, my first spring in Boatmurdered has come to a quiet close. I must say that it turned out to be quite pleasant. I've been working on some more tombs set up for the new nobles, and if someone would ever haul the coffins, they'd be all set. I've also been concentrating on getting food production stable, and getting some of this fat rendered and cooked up, and getting some more metal bars stockpiled. I must say that I don't know why everyone tells tales of Boatmurdered being so brutal, but I think it's been fun thus far. And I'm sure tales are just fables, made up to scare us all in the capital. On to summer. First of Hematite, I got a notice that we lost a war dog in a macaw raid. Apparently, he managed to tear 2 apart, but was struck down. The macaws took off with some of the goblin garbage outside. What a waste. The dog, that is. Heck, they can come back and take it all for I care. Also, I've finally seen little Iral, the Baroness Consort's little girl. Good to see that she's drinking lots of beer, like any other healthy dwarven baby should. And I wonder if she'll grow up to be a noble, or if she'll be useful. Oh, there I go on again. And the human caravan and trade noble arrived today. Here's to hoping they'll be more useful than the elves were. And the humans have actually brought wagons stuffed with meat. Yay for humans. I was able to finalize a deal with the humans asking for more meat in exchange for these items. Note to former rulers. Trade this stuff. Okay, so these dwarves have some kind of serious learning deficiency. I traded 600 units of meat and told 4 dwarves to only haul food, and they still all rotted in the trade depot. Good gods, these people have some kind of inborn desire to starve to death. It's the 4th of Galena 1061, and our former ruler, Sankis, has suddenly decided to try and drink out of the lava river. I've tried to talk him out of it by changing his jobs and telling him to join the military, and then relieving him. But nothing seems to work. I don't think this will end too well. Thankfully, though, summer was relatively uneventful. I've tried to get Sankis's mood improvement program I like to call Up With Yourself, but he keeps moping by the lava. How sad. And as winter begins, I would surely lose a grade or point or 2 for not keeping a journal this whole time. Were I back in school, but to tell you the truth, I really didn't need to. Winter is now over, and I'm about to welcome my replacement. I have to say, aside from the dwarves who live here being a little special, this experience has been quite enjoyable. I'd like to recap my current projects, but first, let's catch up. This is what our stocks looked like in the beginning of winter. And we had a few kobolds sneak in and try to pilfer our items, but thankfully the dogs quickly sniffed them out and ripped them apart. I also ordered the east side of the river dug out as far north as the mountain range went, and this should make foraging for berries and plants much easier in the spring. Although, unfortunately, the citizens insisted on replacing all of that dried vomit that welcomes every visitor. And rather than clean up the kobold mess, everyone would rather squish their toes in the gore and spread it all over. Also, you notice that the Baroness Consort, has another girl. At least she's good for something, after all. And this is the stocks at the end of the year. And all in all, I had a splendid time. I'm quite sure that the horrible stories are nothing more than stories made up to scare off or impress those of us in the capital. I've decided to take it easy now, and I've earned a break. I'm taking up fishing. I think it will be a relaxing way to pass the time. Well, as long as someone decides to finally clear up the mess in the halls. Oh, yes, some notes and unfinished business. Sankis finally listened to reason and stopped trying to drink out of the lava river. He's given up on the disturbing engraving for the time being and is busying himself making some fine furniture. I must say he's quite good, although the detail in some of the tables he's made are... well, let's just not mention them. There is a mechanic named Ast, that is married to the guildmaster, I believe, who is wounded. Now, I'm not sure from what, but he, Ast, won't be leaving her side, no matter what you tell him to do. It's touching, if not a little frustrating. I've ordered all of the elephants to be tamed, but for some reason the trappers refuse to train any more war dogs, and I can't fathom why. They keep saying that there are no dogs to train, but I'm practically tripping over the dogs right now. I think that does it. Oh, and I've set up a modest private quarters for myself, but the bedroom furniture hasn't arrived yet. If someone could mark my assignment when the hauling is done, I'd appreciate it. It's just north of the latest low-rent bedroom complex completed, just west of the river, and south of the main drag. I'd do it myself, but, well, I'm gone fishing. Journal ends here. And then out of character, we have a final note from Dr. Zero. And they say, "What can I say? I lucked out. Nothing bad happened the whole time. I managed to stabilize food production, and I kept making that fat and cooking it, because that's good eating. I've also mined out a huge section, so gems and ore should be easy to locate. I guess that was my destiny, to give it a brief respite, before it all slides into chaos once again. And thus ends the Journals of Dr. Zero, so that we can make way for an old friend to return, as ruler of Fortress Boatmurdered. It is the 1st of Granite, 1063, and our old friend who is now returning to Boatmurdered is Mariguana. I introduced myself to the people of Boatmurdered today, and I had to put on my best tough guy facade. You know, threatening a few people with death here and demanding absolute obedience there. Really, I'm not like that at all, but I didn't think that they would listen to me unless they feared me. And it's better to be feared than loved. At least, that's something I heard in Nakoto Monolozovothri, the Overlord. There are so many problems with Boatmurdered, I don't even know how to begin reversing the cycle of decay. The first thing I noticed was the smell, and I don't know what to say about it. It's like an elephant's ass. Then I saw the bones and the rotting pieces of flesh that children kick about in the streets, and the nightmare scenes carved into the walls, of dwarves and animals screaming, and of monsters gorging upon children in lumps and things I never want to speak of. It's as if the dwarves of Boatmurdered have lost all hope. I don't know what to do for these people, or if, indeed, there's anything that can be done for them. For now, I have ordered them to move these piles of goblin equipment to the magma river to be melted. And by gods, how many legions of goblins have died here before the gates of Boatmurdered? I woke up in a pile of garbage outside of my room today. It's the 5th of Granite. And I think I drank too much. Or maybe I was knocked out and placed here to die? I'm not sure. I am irritated to note that in the past 4 days, not one piece of goblin armor has been moved to the armor stockpile I have designated in the back end of the fortress. I decided to investigate the problem and found that 72 of the dwarves currently living in the fortress, 22 are nobility, 4 are children, 6 are employed in the military, and note, this will be increased later, 5 have wounds that leave them unfit for work, and a dozen more are partying. Something had to give. I regret that it had to come to this, but for now, there will be no partying in Boatmurdered. I hope that none of the men will be terribly upset by this decision. Today, I also noticed that the fortress is sorely lacking in bins. Not wanting to send any of my already scant workforce out into the wild to cut down trees, I ordered the production of some metal bins, and was horrified to find that the only dwarf who knows his way around the forge is currently in jail? I think I understand why my predecessors left this place such a mess. It's now the 20th of Granite, and the elves have arrived. Their meddling is the last thing poor, struggling Boatmurdered needs. Why should we help them? The elves have done nothing for the dwarves but waste our time with their moronic little demands. The elven diplomat is here, and unsurprisingly, she thinks that she can boss us dwarves around. Who the hell does she think she is? My gut tells me that I should have her strapped to a boulder and lobbed over the horizon. My gut tells me that I should have her strapped to a boulder and lobbed over the horizon. It also tells me that I should fell every tree in the forest and set fire to the grasses and... gods. Everything about her makes me angry. And yet, part of me recognizes the need for good relations with these fools. What should I do? It is now the 28th of Granite. Early spring. I fear that I have made a terrible mistake. I told her that her demands were reasonable. She insulted our kind twice more and then left. What would our ancestors have done? They'd have killed the bitch. That's what. Nobody as offensive, rude, and presumptuous as the elves should be allowed to live. While the diplomat escaped my wrath, elven merchants are still here. And so are those trees those fools are so concerned about. There is a storm coming. Lemma Sarathli. Now, if you look quite closely at these two screenshots, you'll see that our fortress overseer is being quite strict with the rules. and looses a ballista arrow directly into the trade caravan, killing a number of the elves. And, as he writes, now that the merchants are disposed of, I will ensure that not one tree or shrub grows outside of Boatmurdered. And in the Dwarven tongue, there is no word for forgiveness, utters Mariguana, as he sets every single tree to be chopped and butchered. It is now the first of Fellsight in late spring, and Mariguana writes in his diary, I regret to write that our deforesters are having difficulties. Some of the men are allergic to the sun, and they can only walk so far before they become sickly and crawl back towards the fortress, leaving trails of vomit in their wake. Other dwarves were ambushed by elephants in the southern parts of the forest, where magma could not reach. It goes without saying that the casualties were high. 2 dwarves died, and others were wounded, and had to be dragged back to camp. I have ordered the men to leave the Elephant Grove alone, at least for the time being, because sometimes it's wise to live and let live. But as the days roll by, there is a dwarf among us who calls himself Emperor Sankis. The impudence of it. By my official decree, he shall be renamed Sankis the Beardless. Wait until the men hear about this. Ha! And as that portion of the thread comes to a close, Guerilla Medic responds. Guerilla Medic is our next fortress overseer, in fact. And they say, oh god, you slaughtered the merchants? And are going to leave me to deal with the invasion? I love the smell of burning elf in the morning, though I might drown them for a change, if I can convince my dwarves to not get crazy and make themselves thongs out of each other. And out of character, Mariguana responds, and seems to be concerned. Oh dear God, I'll post an update later tonight. I intended to do one earlier, but due to an incredible stupidity on my part, I am scrambling to save my grade in my molecular genetics course. On my exam, there was an essay question on the back of the final page. I just assumed that the back of the exam was blank and handed it in. I've been trying to convince my professor to give me a chance to make up part of it, but he isn't budging. I'm hosed. Once I tire myself of trying to save my scholarship, I'll get right back to the update train. But thankfully, shortly after in the thread, Mariguana Returns, 12th of Hematite, 1063, early summer. Today, the bridge to the elephants was completed. Oh, how they rue the day they opposed Boatmurdered, for they shall be consumed by the sweet magma. But the sighs of relief and excitement from Mariguana wouldn't last super long, because moments later, they would start screaming, oh god, what have I done? Is it too late to stop the magma now? Ancestors, help me. Because at the moment that they released the lava, the human merchants had arrived with their wagons. So many. Diary. So many. Their blood is on my hands, and I can do naught to save them. Mariguana writes. And as the molten hot lava creeps its way across the deserted plains of Boatmurdered, Mariguana speaks with the guild leader. On behalf of the Merchants Guild, let me extend my greetings to your people, for there is much to discuss. And Mariguana agrees. Yes, fool. Yes, you have no idea how right you are. But it seems that the excitement wasn't over. Because now there was goblins. A vile force of darkness had arrived. Goblins? Here? Now? Writes Mariguana. Damnation. The flow cannot pass the bridge. I need to consult with my engineers. Fortunately for the goblins, they'd found a rare spot of safety in Boatmurdered. As if it was a plea for help, Mystic Mongol posts in the thread. You need an aqueduct. The aqueduct needs to be made of stone. You just murdered dozens of our best trading partners, you bastard. Mariguana had seemingly found a solution and posts this image of soon-to-be torched elephants. Our revenge is fulfilled, he shouts. Let the elves come and know our steel. It is now mid-autumn, and Mariguana has made a poorly timed, or well-timed, mistake once more. And screaming to the heavens of Armok, oh god, not again, the magma is already flowing, and my kinsmen are going to die. The dwarven caravan from Camillebil has arrived. But much to the relief of the dwarves, Mariguana was just kidding. That was a good joke, he writes. Wasn't it, diary? Seemingly, the dwarves were there to trade. And Camille brought us a lot of meat today, and we were glad to take some old goblin equipment as payment. But I would like to note something. The player here, in the current year, as this still hasn't changed. You see those iron shields? One of the nobles in the fortress has currently banned the export of iron shields. If they were not purple, they would be totally fine to sell. Banned exports is one of the things that gets dwarves beaten and put into prison. Explains a few things. And Mariguana is now suddenly concerned because the human diplomat has now arrived. Pretty late in the season, if nothing else. Greetings, noble dwarf. There is much to discuss. And then proceeds to compliment Mariguana. It's such a pleasant place you've carved out for yourselves. Why, thank you, responds Mariguana. Just don't look at the walls. And then with that, the human diplomat leaves. Phew, says Mariguana. Whatever problems we have with the humans are for the next leader of Boatmurdered to deal with. It has been an honor, noble Lycott. I bid you farewell. As the season of autumn rolls on, nothing major has happened since the coming of the human diplomat, but there were some minor events I felt would be worthy to record. Diary. An injured peasant is moping about the fortress and refusing to eat. I think we can all agree that that is for the best. Also, one of our fool trappers tried to club a leopard with his crossbow, with obvious results. He became a bunch of dwarven chunks. And a corpse. And the dead trapper's war dog then charged after the leopard, seeking revenge for the loss of its master. Its body was almost instantaneously broken by the large cat. Although I had written the dog off as dead, it was making quite the comeback. The war dog bit down on the leopard's stomach and shook violently, ripping the beast in twain. The dwarves of the fortress were inspired by the dog's heroic victory, and they have nicknamed it Lizard Cudgel. While I don't know what lizards or cudgels have to do with anything, I am nonetheless swelling with pride to have such a courageous animal counted among the denizens of my fortress. And Sankis is continuing on with his questionable artworks. Did you have to name it the Green Grave of Biles, too? It is an exceptionally designed image of a human by Sankis. The human is burning. It is the 20th of Sandstone, and Mariguana has begun the construction of a monument, so that his people will have something to remember him by. Work on the monument is progressing too slowly. Although I have assigned nearly every dwarf in the fortress to this task, I fear the monument may not be completed in time. And in the early winter, goblins besieged the fortress. Damnation! I had to pull the dwarves inside and scorch the world. Work on the monument is enormously set back. It seems that scorching the world is about to cause some pretty major issues for our friend Mariguana. Uh-oh, he writes, as the magma melts one of the beautiful engravings of Sankis, the Beardless. Sankis, buddy, sorry about the beard comment. Could you, calm down a little? He says as Sankis is throwing a tantrum. But Mariguana is not finished yet. The flood of magma last winter set alight a catapult in the ramparts of our fortress. It has created a smoke cloud that lasted for weeks, causing dwarves to choke on it and driving them utterly mad. It is now the 25th of Moonstone, and Mariguana is in a state of panic. Oh my god, Sankis is on a bloody rampage. He mauled a baby and a cow, and now, at this very instant, he's beating an elite Marks dwarf, Cadul Locumund, into paste. Did I mention? He's on fire. He's on fucking fire! Oh dear God, Sankis, just let him die. You don't need to break every part of his body. Oh my god, Sankis beat the elite Marksdwarf until he finally died from being on fire. In fact, he beat him so long that the elite Marksdwarf also caught fire and died shortly after. And with that, Sankis, the Beardless, former ruler of Boatmurdered, bled to death, alongside of the final member of the Seismic Pale Nets, the elite Marksdwarf, Cadwal. And of course, the normal hecklers show up in the thread. And Zo posts, he's on fire, no wonder he's pissed. The only question is who will take over the task of carving a record of these wonderful events into the walls and floors for posterity. Fare thee well, Sankis, and the fortress will never be the same without you. Ladderface also adds, this is one of those moments that makes Boatmurdered what it is. Extermination of armies, gruesome engravings, and insane superpowered dwarf wizards gone on a mad rampage while on fire. This is Boatmurdered. And I have to agree. It is now the 1st of Opal, midwinter. And Mariguana has some terrible news. The carnage did not stop there with Sankis. More and more dwarves are tantruming, and fighting is near constant in the streets. There are only 5 nobles left alive now. Why? Because nobles are goddamn weak. If you've got to bet on 10 tantruming nobles or a goddamn swordmaster, the choice is clear. And looking a little closer at the dwarves, Mariguana mentions that they've never seen a child this miserable. And honestly, I would have to agree. I have seen some pretty upset dwarves in my day, don't get me wrong, but this is a pretty pissed off kid. And it seems that Boatmurdered isn't going to get a break anytime soon because the mandrels, they are attacking. They snuck in through the smoke. No matter what I do, they just won't stop dying. There are now 39 dwarves living in Boatmurdered, 10 of whom are injured, 2 are jailed, and several are insane. At least the smoke and miasma make it difficult to see the burning bodies and pools of blood mixed into the vomit. And Sankis has a question. So what exactly started the whole unrest? Was it Sankis? Or was he simply another byproduct of a larger cause? The lava flow? And Mariguana responds, it's the smoke. There is a permanent cloud of it driving everybody mad. It makes everybody just an inch from snapping. So if the tiniest little thing goes wrong, someone is going to go berserk. And when that berserk dwarf kills another dwarf's baby, the father goes berserk and kills a cow. And that causes the cow lady to go mad and break the well. And so on, until everybody's mad. Even now, the dwarves on the sick beds in the barracks are beginning to rip each other apart. I tried to order the dwarves to close the gates and keep the smoke and fire from getting in, but there is a burning corpse in the way, keeping the northern gate wide open. None of the dwarves seem like they want to move it either. Frankly, I don't blame them. Only 29 dwarves left now, but I will not let my reign be known as a total failure. Every dwarf who can stand is working single-mindedly on the monument. I will finish it. By late winter, on the 23rd of Obsidian, the smoke is rising, and the cycle of death in Boatmurdered is coming to an end. The population of the fortress seems to have stabilized at 27 dwarves, with the last death occurring a little over 2 weeks ago. And with a cry, Happy fucking New Year, you poor bastards. It's now the year 1064. Almost everyone in Boatmurdered is dead. Those who aren't are either insane or hopelessly overworked. My condolences to anyone who governs Boatmurdered next, because you have your work cut out for you. Just how bad is fucking Boatmurdered doing? No drink, 27 dwarves, almost no remaining military, no broker, no bookkeeper. And back in those days, you couldn't even open the stockpiles if you didn't have a bookkeeper. And my monument? Yeah, I finished it. I meant to make half a goddamn lizard body, and nobody will say otherwise, if they know what's good for them. And thus ends the reign of Mariguana, of Fortress Boatmurdered. And we move towards the final Fortress Overseer. And with that, we begin the final chapters of Boatmurdered. And our final Fortress Overseer, Guerilla Medic. It's the 1st of Granite, 1064. I drank the last of my personal stash a week ago. and there is not a single drop of alcohol in the whole fortress. We are doomed. Truly doomed. This is the first time I've been sober in years, and I've yet to understand all the horror that we've been through. Due to recent events, the fortress is in martial law, and I'm in charge. We are doomed. Might as well enjoy this, thinks Guerilla to himself. In my drunken stupor, I have started wearing a second layer of armor and increased my arsenal with another sword. They have kept me alive all these years, so I shall continue. The indefinitely burning enchanted puppy outside the gate turned out to not be a hallucination, and it smells awful, considering about flooding the valley, to put it out. I finally figured out where everyone keeps sneaking when I look away. The last ruler ordered a 300-foot-long gecko to be built as a decoration. While it is rather pretty, I ordered the construction to be suspended on the threat of bashing their heads in. And by the gods, Mengor Grandel tried to extract the flaming puppy, but caught fire and died instead. By the gods. Why? And the elves have come. I have been told we promised to not cut down too much trees last year. I think that they'll be less than happy about the massive defoliation campaign that has been going on. They said nothing. They only traded their wagon of cloth for a few of the many slightly burnt weapons lying around the gate. I think they're piles of yellowing bones and still smoldering grundle. Put them off a bit. Ugh, I can't play anymore. I do not know if I have the strength. The most useless immigrant wave ever. 20 nobles. Nothing else. This will slay me. How can I keep them out long enough to pull the lever? What can I do? No, seriously, every stockpile is on fire. The nobles are tantruming because they want me to make talc dildos or some such. I have 16 non-noble dwarves. I'll go for adamantium. Oh god. The Miners Guild representative wanted to pick up some clothes, and now he runs around on fire. It is now the 8th of Felsight. All burn. Children burn fastest. Less fat. Locked lot crazy dwarves in statue garden. Won't move until they stop moving and burning. Some escaped. Still burning. And in the midst of the chaos and bleeding creatures and dying children and dwarves, Guerilla claims to have found Sankis' ultimate work, an image of an elephant in the fetal position. And then, outside of character, Guerilla Medic posts, because they have a request. I need more votes on this. Try to survive the burn or mining adamantium. I could make some bitching weapons before everything burns down. Those nobles are out of control, and in my knowledge, the 2 deep timer starts if you mine somewhere between 10 and 99 adamantium. And I haven't dug out any yet. And Dr. Zero has some advice. My vote is to just keep playing until all of the dwarves are dead. Never give up, and never surrender. And StarkRavingMad responds with this. And also has an addition, which is maybe the most 2007 thing I've ever read. You're fucking right. I'm glad I got away from those crazy cocksuckers when I had the chance. Armok, rest their poor souls. Pussies half price for the next 15 minutes. Seriously, there could not have been a more appropriate end to the saga of Boatmurdered than a gigantic, flaming apocalypse, for no apparent reason. With that, we continue the perilous journey of Guerilla Medic. The very stones themselves are burning. Nothing can stand in the heat. The fires have claimed all of the second hall, and there are only 5 of us left. And Unib Barog walks back and forth, carrying objects uselessly, not understanding anything. The tales are true. Adamantium is cursed. We did not but uncover the vein, and doom befell us. Cyril, Likotag, told me he had to fill the pool and wandered into the fires. Poor creature. Barog declared that he wants a new Bonobo leather trousers. No adamantine has been mined, and yet human merchants have arrived. Burn them, cry the intrusive thoughts of Guerilla Medic's mind. And with that, the diplomat left unhappy, and probably a little bit toasty. Rakist, Ulterlon, went mad and slaughtered 2 dwarves, and then wandered into flames in a berserk rage. And with that, there's only one left. One singular dwarf. A child. Feral and crazy, and lurking in the bone horde. She looked happy enough, so I left her alone. And with that, Guerilla Medic says I will leave, cut my beard, and seek death somewhere else. There is nothing for me here. The child will now be the ruler of Boatmurdered. And the child, Dodok Saberfranzes, has somehow been ecstatic lately, and admired a fine door. And, of course, is enamored with the adamantine that the miners discovered. And she needs alcohol to get through the working day, and has gone without a drink for far too long. And with that ends the story of Boatmurdered. Or does it? Sorry, goons, writes Guerilla Medic. I just couldn't handle it. With the whole fortress filled with rotten cat corpses and miasma, I couldn't even pull the doomsday lever when the last merchants arrived. The only guy who kept sane and not walking into flames was the badass fortress guard walking around in chainmail, and plate mail, and a sword in each hand. The fortress of Boatmurdered burns, without and within. All the smoke and fire. Everybody is dead, save 2. I ask you to picture a lone abandoned child, and the well-known madman gorilla, Burial Gears, outside the heavily decorated mountainside entrance. The child plays in a bone pile, simple-minded and happy. She seems oblivious to the death and decay that surrounded her on all sides. Once a celebrated hero, Guerilla has found himself helpless as this idiot child, when he was needed the most. The would-be ruler silently mourns for the poor child's future, while he knowingly and selfishly prepares to leave her behind. As he pulls on his pack and begins searching for the road, the girl suddenly yells, "Shiny!" and thrusts a pebble towards him. Guerilla reaches out to take the smooth stone and rubs it thoughtfully between his fingers. While returning an empty smile, the girl quickly goes back to her bones and takes the opportunity to leave. This is all he knows to do. Killing her would be a service, but his swords seem too heavy for the task. Or is it his heart? Once more he rubs the stone and decides this is how it must be. He simply cannot kill her. One of the greatest dwarven warriors to ever live, unable to kill a child. He would find it pathetic and laughable, were he still sane. Alas, my very soul is broken, along with his mind. The famed dwarven warrior now finds himself too emotionally wary to do more than mindlessly pilot his body towards safer fields or a pitiful, uncelebrated death. After a bit of searching, Burial Gears finds the outline of the main road and begins to follow it towards civilization. The only coherent thought he can seem to muster will ultimately become his mantra, and his sole reason for continued life in the early months of his upcoming journey. Any place is better. I must press on. I ask that you picture this dwarven champion, pausing briefly atop the last ash-encrusted ridge in the distance. In the waning light of a settling sun, he looks back upon the gaping, smoking maw of Hell's Door one last time. At this moment, he finally sees Boatmurdered for what it truly is, a wicked and foreboding blight upon the surrounding lands. The windswept and charred landscape robs him of any tears he might have produced. All are dead at Boatmurdered, the best dwarves he has ever known, gone in his mind. The blood of the dozens he could not save will eternally stain his hands. In his head, he will forever hear the screams of the dead as they burned or murdered one another in the last days of the once proud fortress. Guerilla Burial Gears absently tucks the child's rock into his pack and turns to leave for good. His head hung low. His words trail behind him, as he disappears over the ridge. It is a haunting whisper, quickly stolen away by the wind. All burn. And then he's gone. High atop the cliff, a lone child waves goodbye and chases her gesture with a kind, carefree laughter only youth can enjoy. She then returns to her game with a pair of pretty stones, almost immediately forgetting about the nice dwarf in the shiny suit. This unfortunate young girl will become to be known in legend as Dodok Saber Frenzies, the last survivor of Boatmurdered. In all cultures, both name and place will come to elicit hushed tones and ultimately grow synonymous with doom of the very soul itself.